start the music over too. It's very important. Hey everybody, welcome. Hey Luke, good to see you. Hey Noah. Amanda, here you go. There's the live stream link. Hey everybody, welcome. Hey Luke, good to see you. There we go. Hey Eric. Hey Jill. Hey Brenda. Hey Janet. Hi Claire. Amanda, did that work okay?
Yep, it's working.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
All right, I'm going to start recording too. There we go. Hey Amanda, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're going to let everybody come in. Got a few more people we're waiting for. In the meantime, let's test out your chat skills. I'm sure you're all chat veterans on Zoom, but let's test out your chat skills and just pop in the chat. What are you most grateful for today? What are you most grateful for today? Luke is grateful for Eric. This is already a beautiful retreat. I can already see it happening. Sun and good weather. I love it. 2 more days. Nice, Amanda. Amanda, if you don't mind letting me know if we get everybody. Take a look. Oh, congrats, Terry. That's great. All right. Luke, Luke is waiting for you. I don't know if you saw that, Eric. All right. I think we got about everybody.
Should be everyone. I think the phone number is Antonio.
Is the phone number Antonio?
Yes, it is.
All right. All right, I'm going to rename you so we know who the phone is. There we go. Awesome. Jill, I'm going to hand it over to you to kick us off, and then I'll go through some tech checks and some orientations for the day.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'm grateful we planned a virtual retreat because I have a sinus infection and hopefully you can hear me. I actually don't feel that bad, but when I woke up, I couldn't talk. So at least I can talk now. Welcome to the retreat. Thanks for bearing with us as we decided to go virtual this year. I think that we felt like this would be having everyone on the same platform as opposed to a hybrid type thing would allow everyone to better engage. And I hope that proves true. And as I've been saying, I think for a couple of months, I promise that this won't just be like a formal business meeting. We've worked hard to make it a time of connecting and interacting and listening and hearing from each other. So I hope it will be very valuable. We are going to, let me give you a high level summary of what we're going to be doing. We'll do a little bit of sort of reflective work that just reminds us about our mission and the purpose of CSI and what some of our strengths are. We will be spending a good amount of time exploring how to build on the commitment to equity that we have already made with an emphasis on making it actionable. I'm glad we finally have this sort of time and space to be able to do that. And we will also be, as an extension of making DEI actionable, we'll be reviewing and working toward finalizing goals for next year. This is not like a meeting where we're going to make a bunch of decisions. It's a lot more about ideating and input and creatively hearing from each other and connecting. So that will be the emphasis today. So ultimately, I hope that we will leave feeling really aligned on the upcoming year. I personally feel like one of the biggest drawbacks of the virtual year has just been a limited ability to build relationships with each other. I think it's, I feel bad, like, for Danielle and for Maribel and for Brenda, who most of us have never met in person. I think it just means you've had a very different experience so far. So I hope that today helps us take a step forward in that. So I will introduce Tucker. He's our DJ, but also the Chief Impact Officer of Thrive Impact. And Thrive works to solve the nonprofit leader burnout problem in the world. And Tucker and his team at Thrive are very experienced facilitators who use a method called appreciative inquiry in their work. I've actually worked with Tucker in my communications consulting for another client to do something similar to this that was received really good feedback from the board. I think you'll find that their approach really unlocks collective intelligence and helps sort of move things forward at a speed you might not thought was feasible. And I think you will just enjoy what Tucker brings and his team. They're fun and they're high energy. And I think we could all use that on a long Zoom call. So I will hand it over to you, Tucker.
Fantastic, Jill. And what a delight to have worked with you on that one project we did, and also to be here with all of you today. I'd like to briefly introduce the two wonderful facilitators with me today. We have Jennifer McDowell. She has a lovely balloon in front of her name, in case you haven't seen. And then we also have Colleen Masterson-Bizdock. These are skilled facilitators themselves, but we are your facilitation team for today. I'm going to do a couple quick tech checks with you. Well, first of all, who on here has been on a few too many Zooms this last year that you care to admit? Anybody? Yeah. Who was in a Zoom room that you wished you were somewhere else? Anybody? Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, Luke, there you go. Using your digital hand. Nicely done, Luke. That's great. Who actually was somewhere else during the Zoom room? Anybody? That's okay. Judgment-free Zoom room right here. It's okay. You can raise your hand. I know, Terry. Thank you. That's okay. Yeah. Let's see. Thank you, Luke. Yes. See. Hey, it's all right. We understand. And one of the things that we've learned so much about facilitation, both in person and in virtual settings, is that it actually has much less to do to the platform that we're on, but much more to do with the way in which we create and choreograph, as we like to say, the interaction patterns, as well as the quality of the questions that we ask you to engage in. And so one of the things that you'll be experiencing today through that are some perhaps different choreographies, if you will, different ways in which to interact, even in a virtual experience. So let me do a quick tech check. First of all, everybody should see, outside of Antonio, you don't have this because you're on a phone, but no worries. But if everybody sees the reactions button down at the bottom, everybody see that reaction button? There we go. Luke's got his party hat on. That's good. Got a heart. Jill's like, whoa. Oh, Jennifer's a pro tip over there. She's got a lollipop. Noah's got it. Eric, there we go. Amanda. So these reactions are helpful to use throughout the day. And the reason why we say that is because it provides resonance or feedback to anybody who might be talking. So if somebody, maybe Eric, you say something that's deeply inspiring to the rest of the board or the staff, then if it really touches your heart in some way, then put a heart reaction up there. That's totally fine. If you thought somebody said something that was really cool, put a little thumbs up. If somebody is just awesome and you want to appreciate them, put a little clap. That's all great. Use that. We also use chat for that same way. So if somebody says something that's really that you really appreciate or something, then pop it in the chat. Little bits of feedback and responsiveness to each other always creates a more warm and inviting experience. There's another button I want you to look at, which is the view button. Everybody click that view button. You can actually toggle back and forth between speaker and gallery view. We will be spotlighting different speakers as people talk, like I'm spotlit now. I will spotlight Jennifer. There we go. We added her together, and then I'm going to remove her from the spotlight. So we're going to spotlight people as we go. But if you ever want to toggle back and forth between that, feel free to do that. And then the other thing is just love for everybody to unmute and say hello. Just say hi. Unmute and say hi. Make sure your audio is working.
Hello.
Hey, there
Hi.
we go, Tom.
Hello.
Yep, there we go. We hear you. We hear
Hello.
you.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good
I love it.
afternoon.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Luke, how's it going, man?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Eric and I are actually friends. I just want you to know that too. Sorry.
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
curious. I'm curious
Okay.
about where this is going to go today. Should be fun. So, as who received the email? I know Amanda O. Thank you, by the way. Everybody, actually, you know what? Let's unmute and just give a round of applause to Amanda O for all of her incredible work. Can we all do that? Unmute, give her applause. Let's see if this works. Can we hear? Can we hear a little applause? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that was good. Hopefully, you felt that, Amanda, coming through the screen or through the sound. But as you read, you may have read an email that had some list of things to expect today. Did anybody get that email? Did everybody get a chance to read that? A few things in there? Yes, Amanda did so much to make this happen. Amanda, you're incredible. So this is going to be a highly interactive experience. So as much as you can stay on video, that would be great. Making sure we can, of course, hear you is very important. You're going to be invited into some small group interactions throughout the day with each other. And a lot of what we're going to be doing is working on collectively how you as a board and you as a staff and a leadership team can best serve the community that you serve right now. And I think that's it. Did I get everything I needed to get? Jennifer, Colleen, am I good? Thumbs up. Is everybody ready to go? Everybody, give me a thumbs up. Give me a head.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Maribel wasn't able to join at the last minute. Did anyone say that already? She actually had a medical situation. She's going to be okay, but she felt bummed about that. So I just wanted to let you know in case you expected to see her.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jill. Appreciate that. So what I'd love for you to do is just drop in the chat one thing. If you're ready to jump in, connect, learn, strategize together, drop in the chat a few words to declare your presence here today. Maybe that's all in, maybe that's 100%, whatever it might be. Pop in the chat your intention for today of how you want to show up and how you want to be here today. Go ahead and pop that in the chat. Ready to rumble. There we go. I love that. I always love to see what people come up with in this part. This one's a fun one. Pop in the chat real quick. A few words to declare your presence. Learn. Eagerly trying to find an icon to put before my name. Nice, Eric. Let's do this, Janet. There we go. Excited to have some time with the board. Ready to go. Who else? Go and pop it up in the chat. Ready to dive in. All right. There we go. Good conversations. Awesome. So one thing I wanted to share with you all real quick is a little bit of why we do a little bit of what we do. And I don't know about you all, but I'm going to, can everybody see your favorite hand model for the next couple hours? Everybody see that okay? Give me a thumbs up or a head nod or dance move maybe, if you have a dance move. Who's got a dance move? Anybody got a dance move? Come on, nobody? Nobody's got a dance move? Tom, is this your dance? This is your dance? That's okay, no worries. One of the things that we've noticed in our time, and I'm gonna go real meta with you all here for just a moment, is that there's actually a graph that was created by a guy named Astro Teller. And by the way, team, if I go fuzzy, please let me know. Unmute and let me know. A guy named Astro Teller, he was the head of research and development for Google X at one point. And what he was talking about was that the speed of change that has been happening, the speed of change has been happening on an exponential curve. It's been happening more and more quick. The complexity at which things have been happening has been going up. Whereas our ability to adapt as humans has been more linear. I'm kind of curious from all of you, who over this last year has felt like maybe we're over here? Who over here has felt like there's a lot of complexity, a lot of speed that's been happening, a lot of craziness in our lives and in our world over the last year? And sometimes hitting those points where, you know, perhaps I'm not quite sure how to adapt to all this. Is anybody, raise your hand if you felt that over this last year? Anybody felt that over this last year? Yeah, Amanda, there we go. Tom, Jill. Well, and one of the things we know from the work of Dr. Daniel Friedland, and this is a wonderful book, by the way, if you ever want to look at it, Leading Well from Within. Dr. Daniel Friedland is actually a neuroscientist, and this book is a neuroscience and mindfulness-based framework for conscious leadership. And he said, whenever we're in these times and we feel like the demands on us outweigh the resources available to us, it actually sends our brains, literally the neuroscience, it literally sends our brains into spirals of reactivity. And it creates stress and self-doubt. Has anybody felt that way this year? Anybody felt that way where we've had I'm raising my hand, by the way, too, right? Remember I said this is a judgment-free Zoom room. It's okay. We can share. Where you felt like the demands on us are outweighing the resources available to us. And so to the extent that that's true, and the extent that we're feeling that, how might we create a different model for why we do what we do, or how we do? And so to the extent that this is true, I want to offer up an idea. We actually call this the new form of leadership, but I want to offer this up as an idea, which is we come from a world where it was important as leaders to be the few who have the answers. It was important as leaders to be the few who have the answers. And this worked in a world when change was, maybe over here, right? It worked. This is a world of telling. This is a world of sometimes controlling. But we're in a time right now where we need to perhaps unlock collective wisdom. We need to unlock the heads and the hearts of all of our people, our board, our staff, the charter schools we work with, the teachers, the educators. And we need to figure out how to do it faster. We need to do it. How do we do it at speed and scale? And so one way that we see is how might we involve and engage the many with better questions. The head of IBM once said that the quality of our questions are what shape our future. The founder of Appreciative Inquiry said something very similar. His name is Dr. David Cooperrider. And how might we get people into a space of inviting, where we're actually learning and co-creating together? And what happens when that happens, going back up to this drawing, is it actually increases our resources. And it actually turns this the other way, to where our resources actually are greater than our demands. So just to go real quick meta with you for a minute, to share with you as to some of the reasons why we actually are about to do what we're about to do, because we're about to send you into an interaction and we're going to have some fun. Any questions, any thoughts, any smart remarks? I'm sure there's a few of you who have some of those, like Luke, I'm looking at you. Any questions or thoughts about that, or anything that resonated with you about what I just shared? You're a quiet bunch. It's okay. We'll get you warmed up here in a little bit. That's fine. Awesome. Well, here we have our first experience for you today. We want you to do. One of the things that we've seen through our research and our experience in facilitating is that groups actually create more powerful outcomes when the participants actually feel more connected to one another, as well as to themselves, as well as to one another. So I have a question for you. I want to make sure, first of all, does everybody have a pen and a piece of paper with them? Everybody got their pen? Wave your pen in the air like you just don't care. Who's got their pen with them? And I want to play a little music. I want you to reflect on this question. It's a very simple question, which is, why is your work with CSI important? Why is it important? A couple ways to think about this. Why is this important to you? Why is it important to the organization? Why is it important to the schools and students that you serve? Let's go ahead and jot down some of your thoughts on that. Just another 10 seconds or so. Wrap up any thoughts you might have. Now, I'm going to have you all do one thing. One of the things we've also learned is that these answers are powerful when they're on paper, but they're actually amplified when we find a physical symbol that represents it. So this is a little bit of a fun exercise, but I want you to get up from your chair and find a physical artifact. This is my monkey I use all the time. That actually represents what you just wrote down. Be creative, have fun with it. Get up from your chair. You just have 1 minute to do it real quick. Wherever you're at. In your office. In your house. Wherever you might be. Find a physical artifact that represents what you just wrote down. Who's got your artifact? Go and wave it up there. I'd love to see it. We'll have you share them with us. I just want to see what we got. Nice, Luke. There we go. I knew Luke was going to have fun with this one. There we go. That's great. Amanda, I love it. Ryan, great. Jill, nice. Brenda, so great. There we go, Eric. Is that a puck? Love it. Awesome. Everybody back? Go and pop your videos on if you're done. If you got your stuff. Everybody got your stuff? All right, here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna go into groups of 3, I believe. Is that right, Colleen? Or do we have a group of 4?
We do have a couple groups of 4, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go into groups of 3 or 4. And basically what you're all gonna do is you're gonna all share. Share why this work was important to you, whatever was most resonant to you. And also share your artifact. If you wanna use your artifact as to actually share why this is important to you, that's fine, use that, that would be great. Basically, where everybody gets about 1 minute to share. So this is not like your TEDx rehearsal talk or anything like that, right? So keep it nice, keep it nice and concise if at all possible. After somebody shares, share anything that you appreciated about what they shared. You know, you might say, Amanda, I just really appreciate you telling that story, right? Or whatever it is it might be. And then afterwards, we're all going to come out and do a little bit of a verbal, hear your voices in the room. Have you all come out into the room and share verbally to the whole group about something that you appreciated or maybe even something you learned about somebody else while you're in that room. Does that make sense? You're going to have time prompts throughout. So don't worry about the time. We'll give you time prompts. They should pop up on your screen pretty easily. Other than that, I think we got it. Actually, there's one more thing I just remembered. Zoom had this weird new update. I don't know if you all knew this, but there's this weird new update with Zoom. And the only way it lets us go into the breakout room is if we all put our hands up like this. I know it's really awkward. I know you're laughing at me, but I know, but everybody has to do it. It's awkward. Yep. Put your hands up like that. Yep. Yeah, there we go. And then do the wave. Okay, now it'll let us in the room. I know, you guys. It'll be fun. We'll see you on the other side of the breakout room. I wonder if we can pause the YouTube as well. Can we?
I was wondering the same thing.
How much time do we have for this, Colleen?
10 minutes.
Sorry, 10. I just realized it was 10.
All right, let's see if we can go down to 8 if that's okay, because I know that we're already behind. Think we can do 8?
Sure. Of course we can.
Of course we can.
We're only 4 minutes behind.
Oh, not bad. Okay.
Nice job, Tucker.
Thank you. I'm looking at the live stream. stop? No, I can't stop live stream. All right. Just note that anything we say in this part of the recording is actually going up on the live stream. Nobody's on there. There's one person watching. Oh no, it's me.
Okay.
Never mind. I'm watching, so I am that one person. That's funny.
But also this
Days.
link will be recorded forever after the live stream link, right?
No, I'll take it.
You
off.
can't access it again.
I mean, I can make it private or something like that. So.
Okay.
All right. There we go. They're a quiet bunch. Some of them are fun. They're all fun, actually.
It takes time to warm
They
up.
will be. Yeah,
I
for
know.
sure.
Especially when you're used to like business meetings, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's an adjustment we all have to make.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of. Yeah, there we go. I was trying to think of a transition between the large group share and the paired interview.
I mean, wasn't one of the goals of the retreat to build new, deeper relationships?
Yeah.
And to bring out the strengths, and so
Mm-hmm.
inside the why is the strengths.
All right, let me see what else I need to do. I want to work on those how might we questions. I'm going to pull up a Google Doc for it. I need to do a Google Doc for this. How might we questions? One thing to note too, if you have little pluses or deltas along the way, Jennifer, that's our way of, I think I've told you about that, Jennifer, right? It's like a debrief process we do. Pluses are things that we thought went well, proud about. Positives, deltas are things we might want to adjust or shift for next time. I mean, we may not have this next time, but you know what I'm saying, but any of the choreographies. So if you have any pluses or deltas, just put them down at the bottom of whichever section we're in. That you're like, oh, it'd be helpful if we did da 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 or whatever. So just if you happen to have anything, don't feel like you have to have something, but something pops in your mind. You know how it's like when it's live and it's fresh, just getting it out. So if you have that, just put it in whatever section specifically in the session lab that you had that. We found that to be the best place for us to be able to go back to our deltas
Right. Yeah.
and our pluses too. Okay, where did those how might we's go?
So Colleen, you don't time the breakouts. You just close them and announce. So there's no like count.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I've done both. Like when I do other things, I sometimes use the timer because people really appreciate having the timer, and then you don't have to like disturb their conversation as much with, but then you can do it this way and prompt them, especially if you're not sure how long something might take. Like if you're watching them fill out documents or something, then you can kind of give them a little bonus time without it looking so obvious.
Without them like coming to a close and then be like, oh,
Yeah.
we have time. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh, actually, you're not done. Let me send you back.
Ooh, my bad.
I wouldn't do that.
I have accidentally closed the breakouts on people a number of times. So.
Are y'all seeing my Slack messages, by the way?
No.
I did, but
Oh, the one you sent. Yeah, I just saw it now. Sorry. Because I turned my notification off. I have to keep an eye on it. Anytime we have small groups, though, now we will have all groups of 3 except one group of 4. Now that Maribel's not here, just FYI.
I wonder if this looks better. Whoops, wrong one. I should make a little. Oops. Oh, John. Stop it. Oh. How does that look? Does that look a little better? This will be easier for me to adjust to instead of on my Apple Notes, which I usually use. But
Yeah, that looks good to me.
okay.
Probably because I have my glasses on.
Okay.
For mic drop notes, you want me to do that during this section or not?
Yeah, if there's any.
Yep. Okay. Go main.
For sure. Anything that's like, that was amazing. Yeah, I think this is gonna work great. Will you give me, are we closing them down?
What,
Will you
1
just
minute
let me just know when you actually hit the button.
to close. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Nope.
Welcome back, everybody.
Closing Tucker, but a couple folks are coming back already.
Nice. Welcome back, Eric. Welcome back, Janet. Hey, Terry. Welcome back. We got 17 seconds till the whole group will be back. Hey, Noah. Welcome back. Amanda, Brenda, welcome back. Hey, Jill. Welcome back. Hey, Antonio. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Luke, Ryan, welcome back. Tom, Amanda O, welcome back. All right, how was your group? Everybody's watching, so maybe you give them a thumbs up just in case, you know, just kidding. Curious, I'd love to hear a couple voices from the groups. What was something that you appreciated or maybe even learned about somebody from what somebody shared in your group? Love to open it up to a few voices. Tom, go ahead. It looks like you're on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Ryan was in our group, and he's the data guy. And I thought what he said about being creative was really interesting, coming from Ryan. And you know, Ryan and I know each other well, but the fact that he brought up creativity into the conversation was refreshing.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for opening it up too, by the way. Appreciate always the first person to go.
I learned
yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Ryan, you're up.
just want to go before. Oh, Ryan's up.
Oh,
Go,
wait,
Ryan.
Eric. Sorry. No,
Nope,
Eric.
Go, Ryan.
I actually missed all the hand raises. So Eric, go ahead. And then Ryan, did you raise your hand too? No, you didn't. They just spotlighted.
I did not. I was a little message and I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do.
No worries. Eric, go ahead, man.
I just wanted to go before Luke. I learned two things. One, that Janet is an authentic big city girl, and two, that Terry's kids all went to the school she led. And I think those are both pretty cool things.
That's great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for sharing, man. Who else? Anybody else want to share?
I can go for our group.
Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
So Brenda and Noah and I know that our work is important because of kids. So we were very unanimous about that. And then something interesting I learned was that Noah was a stay-at-home dad for a year.
Oh, that's awesome. How many of you, thank you for sharing that, man. I'm curious, how many of you had artifacts that were kids? I saw a few of you that had pictures of kids. Yeah, quite a few of you. I love that. Who else? Who else might want to share? Maybe something that was inspiring to you.
Antonio and Jill and I talked quite a bit about just how the experience in working with CSI via the board or staff has just opened our eyes to so many different communities across the state of Colorado, and just really appreciating all of the differences and just the ability to be able to be part of something great in those communities.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, Claire.
I'll add too that Antonio, he's in a car, so he didn't have a lot of objects to choose from, but he chose a window to represent the access that we create. I thought that was deep.
That's great.
Can't count Antonio out about any time. The thing that I thought was neat was Amanda shared her camera as her thing, which is talking about sort of sharing positive stories. You know, there's so much negativity on everything surrounding our lives. You know, Amanda's work to try to show the positive side of things feels refreshing.
That's fantastic. To that point, I'd love for everybody, just real quick, just, you know, it'd be fun to get a little screenshot. Colleen, can you get some screenshots? Would everybody put their artifact up and we can just get a little quick screenshot of everybody's artifact? There we go. Luke, I love yours. There we go. Who's got your artifact? Noah, you got an artifact? Where's your artifact?
I already put my photo back on the shelf.
Oh, you did? All right. No worries.
This.
No worries. We'll get a good screenshot anyway. No worries. Awesome. Well, thank you all for interacting with each other. I want to make sure if everybody who wanted to share had a chance to share. Does anybody else want to share? Any other last inspirations?
Just going to say Tom shared. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, good. Okay. I was just going to say Tom shared a picture. I don't know if you saw it, of his grandfather in 1972, and was just talking about his family's legacy of serving kids in Colorado. And I thought that was really cool.
I love that. I love the word legacy that you just used. Legacy of his family. That was great. Awesome. So I'm curious. Oh, I need to unpause the recording real quick. There we go. Zoom changed the feature. And by the way, clearly you knew that we didn't need to do the wave. So thank you for playing around with me a little bit, having some lighthearted fun with going into our breakout rooms. Curious, just how was that experience? Did it feel good to just go in there, interact with each other a little bit, connect, not hear somebody yakking at you for too long, you know, that kind of a thing? Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, good. Well, we have another experience very similar to that, but goes a little bit deeper. It's actually called a paired interview. And a lot of the reason why we're creating some of this space is actually a lot of what Jill, you kind of shared at the beginning, as well as what some of you have shared already, which is around creating some space to partly just to get to know one another. We want to do a real quick activity at the beginning. But we want to go into a little bit deeper around some of the different pieces that are important around this, but also to hear what is really the best of us. One of the things that we've found through our journey of appreciative inquiry, which again is the sort of operating system, it's the methodology we use from a facilitation perspective, is in a nutshell, it's really the discovery of the best of who we are, the best of who we have been, the best of who we are, and the best of who we can be. It's very much a strengths-based approach, and that's why we ask some of these questions, which that I'm going to invite you all here in just a minute around, which is really a discovery of what has been the best of us at this point. So I have a few more questions for you to reflect on. Let me move. Hold on. I'm DJ guy, so let me make sure and get some pleasant music for you to think about. We have 3 questions for you, and then after we go into these questions, we're going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more connective. It's called a paired interview, and literally it sounds exactly like it, or it is exactly like it sounds, which is where you're going to go into another room, and you're going to ask each other a few questions. It's meant to be a place where you're going to listen to learn about somebody a little bit more deeply, not necessarily to respond to them. It's not necessarily meant to be a conversation as much as it's meant to more be genuinely interested in somebody else and what it is that they see. But I have a few questions for you to reflect on. We'll give you a little bit more time to reflect on these questions as well. Let me pull them up. So the first question I want you to be thinking about, call this a high point story. And this is really a story when you've experienced CSI at its best? A story when you've experienced CSI at its best. And again, this particularly would be a story that you've experienced when you have experienced and the impact of CSI being at its best. A couple of things to think about. What was happening? Like, what actually happened? How did you contribute to the experience? How did you show up, for example? And how did others show up? So that's the first question. It's thinking about a high point story, an impactful story that you've experienced yourself when you've seen CSI at its best. Second question draws from this, which is, based on that story, what are 2 to 3 core strengths that you actually see that came out of that story, or values? That you want to preserve no matter what changes? By the way, Colleen is masterfully putting these up in the chat as well if you can't read my amazing handwriting. So in case you need it up there. And then the last one is a little bit of a different. So we kind of went into the past, a little bit of a, what we call a continuity question into the present. But going into the future, 1 year from today, what 3 wishes would you like to be celebrating? About CSI. What 3 wishes would you like to be celebrating about CSI? So we'll give you a little bit of time to think on these questions. A little bit longer than last time. Give it another 30 seconds or so. Anybody need a little more time? I do see a lot more writing still. We want to just make sure you have enough time that you need. Need a little more time? Give me a thumbs up if you need a little more time. Everybody seems to be good? Okay, great. Well, so similar to what we did last time, but a little bit different. We're going to have pairs, right? As I said a minute ago. So person A is going to interview person B, literally. Again, we have these questions literally up in the chat for you, so you should be able to use those. And so, for example, if I'm in the room with Luke, I might say, you know, literally I'd say, hey, Luke, tell me about a story when you've experienced CSI at its best. And that's it. After the person A interviews person B, person A, what I want you to do is share, again, any appreciations that you might have. Again, maybe something you learned. Maybe it was something that inspired you about what they shared. But at the end of it, share with them what it is that you appreciated about what they shared. And then you do the exact same thing, person B back to person A. Ask those same questions. You're actually we're gonna be in that room for about 20 minutes. So there's space here. So 10 minutes per person to be able to go through those different questions. So allow it to breathe a little bit. And kind of like I said at the beginning, be genuinely curious. Listen to learn, not to respond. And let the person tell the story. And for example, one of the ways that we do this when it comes to probing a little bit is if there's a little bit about their story that you see energy in them, say something like, tell me more. Or what was going on that caused you to feel that way? So don't be afraid to probe a little bit. Just be aware not to turn it into a conversation and more like you're an interviewer. Does that make sense? I think I got all the instructions. Jennifer, Colleen, we ready to go? Oh, one last thing I remembered. Because we have odd numbers, we have one group of three. One group of three. And so we're going to give you those prompts. You all remember that saw those prompts before. We're going to give a group of three a specific prompt with 3 little dots at the beginning of it, just so that you know yours is going to have to go a little bit faster than the other ones. So we'll give you a specific prompt as a group of 3. All right. All right, cool. All right. Love everybody. Just do a little bit of a physiology change, just a little bit of a shift. Do a light stretch if you'd like. Be nice to your body. Maybe roll your neck a little bit, roll your shoulders just a little bit. And we'll see you all in about 20 minutes on the other side. Hey, Jennifer, can you be on remembering to unpause the recording? I was like, oh,
I was going to, but I felt like, oh, if I just jump right in, it's going to be like, wow. But yeah.
No, that's what I was thinking too, because we were like halfway through and I was like, oh, crap. But 20 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We on time? Not bad.
3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm gonna share my noticings in Slack real quick.
Great. They definitely warmed up some.
And I will try to look at Slack so I can read your noticing.
Totally fine.
I think I need my little notification back on until most of you. Tucker had to send me a chat to tell me to look at Slack. Oopsie.
Great. I wonder who they're in the room with. Knows with there. Ryan, Antonio.
I need to step away for 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Take a minute.
How luxurious.
I know.
Mhm.
Take my spotlight off. Okay. You know what's going to be funny about the live stream is that some people are going to hop on while we're in the middle of our breakout room.
You're like, what is happening?
Like, this is a really boring retreat. What's the timer for? I don't understand.
They're so quiet.
I know, exactly. Is this the whole board? Weird.
And what's Slack?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. It's interesting on the live stream when somebody goes off video, it actually takes them off the screen completely. Like it doesn't just go to their profile image or anything. It just takes them off the screen completely.
Okay.
Interesting.
Sneaky.
I know.
So you can be lurking without anybody knowing on the live stream. Fascinating.
Lurking. Okay. Anything else we wanted to do? So, Jennifer, on the session lab, you're doing the individual reflection on the DEI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're good on the chat share and then the verbal shares. And then you'll transition to Colleen.
Mm-hmm.
Colleen, you got your stuff. You're good on that.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
I got the instructions. That's all right. Be there for 10 minutes. Pick a note taker. Share your story. You know, Colleen, I think if we can, I keep trying to find places to buy time. I'm actually wondering if the 23.
I don't think this individual reflection and story will take 10 minutes. I think it's more of a 6-7 minute.
Okay. I'm really curious about this whole DEI section. Like it's
What's gonna come out of it? Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I'm really curious. It's always fun to, you know, try new choreographies. It's like, ooh, I wonder how they're gonna interact. I wonder how they're gonna engage. I love that you two are doing this too, and for most of it on the DI part. Partly because they don't need to hear me yakking at them too much.
An experiment. Everything is.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I love the pluses and deltas model for debriefing, because it's not like roses and thorns or positives and negatives. It's like, it's just all about learning, you know?
Things you could change.
Yeah, I love it. Did I ever tell you all about the statement from Charity Water that I love, that they use internally? And it's safe to try.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a great little statement that stuck with me so much.
Yeah.
That's like, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Bring a case, bring an idea, and is it safe to try? Like, I was just talking to Ben Green, their chief development officer, the other day about it, and they just launched a whole crypto fundraising program. Yeah, and he's like, you know, what's funny? The funny thing about Charity Water is that we don't necessarily know all of it, you know. You know, people see charity waters as like lighthouse, which they are, but a lot of it's because of the way in which they are adaptive, right?
Willing
It's
to
just
step out there.
yeah, it's just such an interesting, like, I mean, it's going back to like those who have the answers, like they tend to ask more questions and they do come to things with answers, and like, and then create a more like agile learning environment, you know. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But I love that phrase, safe to try.
I like that. I'm going to think about that for this like 2-on-1 mentoring I'm doing with these women. Because we talked about like the power of just experimenting and like not having attachment. Like our lives, our literal entire lives are one iteration of a year on another. Can we just accept that?
Yeah.
So true.
If you can help them come to that, you have done an amazing job as a coach. It's so hard for people to do that. I mean, me included. It's an important shift.
Did y'all watch that David Brooks, the David Brooks guest mentor session?
Not yet. No.
It is definitely well
Really
worth
good.
it.
Yeah.
It was great.
I might have watched.
But one of the things he talked about was because he's researching his book and in his book right now, and it's something about seeing deeply and being deeply seen and known. But he mentioned something that you all reminded me of, which was people who sort of view their lives in almost like chapters of books, in a sense, you know, like, oh, this is that chapter, you know, which of course means that we can have a next chapter. It's
right.
So my daughter actually said that to me the other day, because we're in transition moving into Denver, and you know, we've been in the suburbs for a year, and she said, you know what, that was like a transition chapter of a book. It was so good. Yeah, she's like, I'm ready for the next chapter, you know. It was good. Like my 14-year-old.
On that note, when I had my son, I wrote myself, if I were to write a book about this chapter of my early parenthood, it would be called, He's Gonna Go to Therapy Anyway, so you might as well.
Awesome.
Exactly. You might as well just recognize that's what's going to be.
Don't worry too much.
Just enjoy it.
There we go. I think this will work, right? This feels pretty good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Let me make these just a little bit bigger. There we go. Yeah, I'll do that.
Is the timer going to be there too, or?
No, that's just for
okay.
me. I'm just trying to. I'm iterating. If you know what I'm saying. There we go. So then I'll have to do a scroll. By the way, y'all, this iPad, it's been magical for me. So as you keep upgrading your tech, think about an iPad. I actually did this with a proposal the other day, and it was a written proposal, but I was able to go through the proposal, you know, just like this, and like, well, I can't draw right now, but I would like literally underline things in the proposal that were important.
That is nice.
That's interesting. It was fun.
So in that case, you're using your iPad as the input, not with your camera, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's also easy too. Like if I need something digital that I need to share, I can pop it up into my Apple Notes. Usually is where I put it. Or like when I've done those like workbooks, you know, like in OXC or, you know, those types of workbooks, or if I'm teaching on, like I taught at the 5i deep dive the other day.
Yeah.
And so I had my section of the workbook just on my iPad, and I was literally writing in it with my Apple Pencil as I went, you know, and people could see it. Yeah.
Nice.
It was awesome. And now I don't have nearly as bad of a paper problem. Which is really good. Okay.
I've always been a slow tech adopter.
It's hard sometimes, like what is actually useful, you know? I used to be in the real estate world a long time ago. And I ended up working for a title company to help like bring real estate agents in. But and I remember creating a training program called Translate, because real estate agents were just like hit up with technology all the time.
Mhm.
And they're like, I got all this tool, but I don't know how to use it, or I don't even know where it fits, or I don't even know, And then somebody told me a little while later, something like, it's vision that leads, it's culture that adopts, and it's technology that supports, or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's like technology is here to just support something. It's kind of like us on Zoom, right? Like this is just a technology to support a vision or a theory behind things, And so, yeah, sometimes when there's just like so many options, like the cereal box aisle of technology, like, oh, I don't know, which one do I choose?
And it's easy to get sucked in. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is very easy.
And some are like game changers, right? And really support things well. And others, you get like a tiny little incremental bit of help. It's not quite worth the time to learn.
Mm-hmm. So for this goal section,
right here,
huh?
Can you see what this book is?
Well, let me put you bigger. No.
No, I can't.
Too bad. It's the inner work of racial justice.
Nice.
It's the what?
Inner work of racial justice.
Ooh.
Awesome.
Is it a good
Your
one?
little subliminal message for this
Yeah, it's about how to use mindfulness in racial justice work.
I'm going to review the goals section for a minute. Oh, cool. I'm looking at the YouTube live stream. When I spotlight somebody, it puts them full screen. I just spotlight you and you went full screen in my face for a minute there, Jennifer.
Sorry.
We still have one watching right now. Hi, one. All right, I need to go over the goal section real quick. Should I have this as the intro back into the room music?
Right now, my son is obsessed with the Beatles.
Oh, that's great.
Really
It's
fun.
funny. My daughter is too. That's
Oh.
Seems funny for little one. Yeah, great.
Yeah. He just left Ella Fitzgerald phase, and now he's
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
Hey, Amanda, welcome back.
Hello.
You're early.
You're very efficient.
That's funny. All right, we're gonna close the rooms in 35 seconds, as you can see.
Sounds good.
How was your chat with Luke?
Great.
Yeah. Good.
It's good to get to talk to him. We usually have more chances to, have side conversations and stuff, but not this year.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just close the rooms, Tucker.
Nice.
I'll resume the recording in a minute.
Thank you. Hey, Luke, welcome back, man.
Howdy.
Did you have a nice chat with Amanda?
Always.
Cool.
She said the same thing, actually. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. Jill, Eric, Antonio, Janet, Brenda, Ryan, Noah, Terry,
Hello.
Tom, Amanda. Welcome back, everybody. Did you have a nice conversation? Was it pleasant? Nice to have a little space. I think we got everybody back. Oh, Claire just popped in. Well, welcome back, everybody. We'd love to hear a couple voices in the room, and then we'll have a few reflections or more pieces that came out of that to put in the chat here in just a minute. Because we want to capture some of what you experienced or what you actually wrote down. But I'd love to open it up. Maybe if you can raise your hand physically, we can see your hand, and then we'll have a few voices come in and share just what you appreciated about that interview. Maybe your partner. Who wants to share first? Awesome, Tom. Go ahead.
Do I have to sing along with the music?
Yes, and you have to sing along with James Taylor.
No, I had a great opportunity to be with Claire and Amanda, who are both on staff. And I thought one of the things that resonated with me was one of the things they wanted to celebrate a year with CSI is kind of the regrouping of a close-knit staff. You know, that's been a hallmark of the organization for a number of years. And, you know, for them to be able to come back and celebrate that in a year with some intentional, you know, ways, you know, strategies around that. I thought that was really powerful for me.
That's great, Tom. Thank you for sharing, Tom. And Claire and Amanda, thank you for sharing what you're hoping for as well. Who else would like to share? Maybe something inspiring. It's inspirational from one of the stories.
Amanda shared a really touching story with me around CSI staff sort of rallying around another staff member who was in a tough spot. I think that was a really nice story and a good exemplification of how CSI staff treats each other.
That's great.
I thought another one for me was Claire had talked about a school that really was kind of everybody, board and staff, kind of thought it was a lost cause, and how we kind of, continue to support that school even in the face of adversity, and it's something that we can be proud of. So Claire's comments were fantastic.
Really rallying around a school that felt, you said, felt like a lost cause, but still rallying and finding a pathway forward.
Yep.
Wow, that's great. What a great story. Thank you, Tom. Who else?
Yeah, I'll share something that Eric said.
Noah, and then Jill. Go ahead.
So
Noah.
Eric said that his, his idea of what makes a great school is that they have a clear vision of what they want to be, and they have a relentless focus across their staff on achieving that vision. And he said, the way that manifests for us in CSI is that, across our portfolio of schools, as diverse as those schools are, we can ask them, what is it that you want to be? And then we can assess their performance on their own terms, right? It's what do you want to be, and how do we know if you're being it? And then that tells us whether they have that clear vision and that relentless focus, regardless of what the model is. And that's, something that's really unique to CSI with our sort of diverse portfolio of schools.
Fantastic. I love that, Noah. What is it that you want to be, and helping them to assess? I love that. That's great, Noah. Jill, please go ahead.
Yeah, Janet and I had a great conversation, and I thought I'd share one of the core values that we both had, which was around the relational approach that CSI has to its work with schools, where we, take into account the unique circumstances and context of that school, or maybe even what's going on in a particular school leader's life, and that is very distinctive. And then part of what Janet added that I really appreciated, she's been with CSI for a while, since before Terry was the executive director. And so she just kind of shared more about how that's something that has not always been true of CSI, and that there was even some fear initially around Terry's more relational approach, that it might mean like weakened accountability, but that has not proven true. And like, it's cool to see that that's become something we can recognize as a core aspect of CSI now.
That's amazing. What a great story. Great testament to your leadership, Terry, and to others on the team. That's great. Amanda, please.
Yeah, so Luke and I, discussed the way in which the board comes together around tough issues, a couple in particular, but, I really appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate that about our board, that they can cross these divides, whether they be ideological, philosophical, political, whatever they might be, to come to, an understanding or a resolution. And that, really looking at those wishes moving forward, that we in a year are celebrating some additional new board members and welcoming them into the fold, and continuing that ability to problem solve and resolve some of those conflicts and cross those divides.
Fantastic, Amanda. That's great. I love that can cross these divides. I love those little bite-sized chunks. That's great, Amanda. Anybody else want to share anything that was inspiring? Terry and then Brenda, go ahead.
My internet's unstable, so can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So Brenda and I had a really good conversation. So for folks that don't know, before Brenda came on the board, and she's a relatively new board member, she was working as a researcher contractor and still does do work at that, like that. And she was working, she was looking for some schools to really dive into, to learn about how they're dealing with COVID and how that's working. That was in the fall. And so she reached out and she ended up connecting with two of our schools, and she worked with Claire and Ryan with this project. What an opportunity to use that lens to get to know schools before you're a board member, and to get to know our staff. And her reflections on that experience and her takeaways were just really heartwarming for me, but and what an opportunity for her to go in without having that I'm a board member. So many more candid conversations with schools to really learn about us as an authorizer. What a great opportunity. And I loved hearing about it.
That's great. Thank you, Terry. Thank you so much for sharing. Brenda, please go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Terry. And I was just singing your praises, Claire and Ryan, because you were both so helpful during that process. And I think that ties into everything other people have said around a strong staff culture, and the supportiveness of CSI as an authorizer to its schools as well came out in the interviews I had with school leaders. But what I wanted to mention was Terry's high point of when schools do a course correction that CSI influenced, but didn't necessarily, it's not in a way of mandating. And I think Terry's approach to, when she's telling me her story, of finding this balance of, we value autonomy. That's one of our core values, but we also want to help our schools succeed. And so it's really about coming together to make these decisions around course corrections. And CSI has this perspective of I'm as a statewide entity and as having national level knowledge and research and resources, but schools know their local communities and know what to do best. And so how do you bridge those two and know your roles and know your lanes and really help schools succeed in a way that that they want to, and that they've kind of helped create that decision. So I thought that was really great.
That's fantastic. We value autonomy, influence versus mandating. That's great, Brenda. Thank you so much for sharing. Any last, maybe one more person? Anybody else want to share? I just want to make sure everybody had a chance if they wanted to. Anybody else? So go ahead and put, I want to do two things in the chat because we want to capture some of this. I mean, you all heard your own voices, right, of some of these incredible core values, some of the great stories, as well as a few of the wishes. We're going to have you put two things in the chat, one at a time. The first thing is some of those core values that you either heard or you wrote down yourself. Maybe put your top two that you wrote or you heard up in the chat. We actually want to capture this. And by the way, we're not like reinventing all the, because I know there's actual core value. It's more just a resonance. This isn't some like external document that's going out there. But we want to gather some resonance of sorts from you all. Just what came to mind. What did you hear? So go ahead and pop those in the chat. What are one or two core values that you feel like are some of the most important ones for us to hold on to, no matter what changes and no matter how we evolve as an organization? Yeah, we already heard. Yeah, like a relation. That's great. There we go. Community focused, supportive, listening and learning from schools directly, teamwork, relational approach, responsiveness, school support, people focused, humble, relational, co-creation, supportive, responsive. I love these values. These are all, y'all are amazing, by the way. This is awesome. Collegiality and supportive approach, value autonomy with relational approach. You're all seeing, of course, some themes popping up here from all of your own values that you're putting up. Anybody else want to put up anything else? Adaptability. Thank you, Amanda. Creative thinking. All right, and now what I'd love for you to do, invite you to look at those wishes that you had. And just for yours specifically, look at those wishes that you had. And circle the one that's like your top wish. What is that one wish that you really want to make sure comes true? That you want to be celebrating. We're sitting, maybe not in this Zoom room a year from now, but in some room a year from now, we're all sitting here celebrating that one. What is that one wish? I want you to pop that up in the chat as well. And it's okay if it's a little bit longer, if it's a little bit of a paragraph, that's fine. Or just a key sentence is fine as well. But pop that up in the chat. What might those wishes be? Hmm. More kids in highest quality seats. Rebuilding culture. Where are they now? Success stories on CSI Kids. I love that, Tom. That's great. Focused on students first as schools come out of COVID times. Genuine specific feedback from our schools that we've helped them be better. What else? What's one of your wishes? Go and pop it up in the chat. Awesome. Positive school stories highlighted locally and statewide. A great set of new board members joining CSI. That's great. The focus on people, staff, students, school board, and families continues. Continued iteration to get better at what we do. That's great. Anybody else? Pop that up in the chat. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break. Let you all get up, stretch your legs, go outside, go hug somebody, grab some water, whatever it might be. I'm gonna put a 5-minute timer up. That's a 3-minute timer, wait for it. Put a 5-minute timer up. If we can all come back at, let's see, it's 1:53. If we can come back at 1:58, that would be great. So go ahead and get up from your chair. Don't look at a screen if you can. Go grab some water, grab a little snack, whatever, and we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Just a minute left. Come on back in about a minute. All right, start coming on back. Start coming back. Come on back, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. I wanted to say a quick note real quick, which was Jennifer is our chief noticer to make sure we create as much of an inclusive environment as possible. And Antonio, I realize you can't chat anything to us from your phone. So Antonio, if there's anything that you'd like to offer up as well when it comes to core values or your wishes, we'd love for you to either verbally do it now, or you feel free to shoot it over to Amanda O so we can make sure and include that in the notes.
Thank you very much. I think my partners thus far have done an excellent job of communicating what our conversations have been.
Fantastic. Okay, great. We just wanted to make sure that was, you still felt included even though you're on the phone, so.
No, I mean, ask any of the other board members if I really want to be heard or need attention. No one can stop me, not even Zoom. So.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, put in the chat, what was the most uninspiring thing you did over the break? Who did the most uninspiring thing? What'd you all do? What'd you do over the break? Anything? Anything uninspiring? Or maybe inspiring. Maybe you did something inspiring. You made coffee? That's good. Yes, coffee is inspiring. That is definitely not uninspiring. Brushed your teeth? All right, Jill. Okay. Stared mindlessly out the window? Hey, all right. Very uninspiring. Nice job, Tom. Let your dog out. There you go. Some of you got a good chat game, by the way, I'm noticing. Ate my wife's leftovers from lunch. There you go. Nice note. Awesome. All right, we're going to transition into another part of this retreat. And where am I on it? We're actually going to transition into the diversity, equity, and inclusion part about the journey that we're on. So far, what we've done up to this point is you remember how I shared with you about us engaging in questions and engaging each other with questions. We wanted to slow it down a little bit because what we've learned, again, to use the work from Dr. Daniel Friedland, is that the way our brains are functioning, or the way the neuroscience actually works, is that if we don't create some kind of a space of belonging, it's actually hard for us to go into strategy. The way that our brains are actually the way that they function, if we don't create a sense of psychological safety or a sense of belonging or a sense of just connection or relational connection, which is, by the way, why I love how all of you shared, or many of you shared, the relational approach as one of your core values. Literally, according to neuroscience, it's hard for us to go into the significance part of our brains, which is the cortex, which is where we develop strategies and things like that. So we're going to go into another section here where we're going to do some connection around DEI, and then we're going to talk about strategies. It is going to start to speed up after Jennifer's going to lead us through a little bit of a reflection, and then it's going to start to speed up. We're going to do a fun type of brainstorming activity called a one conversation, and we're going to start moving and moving and moving. So anyway, with that being said, Jennifer, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you lead this section.
Cool. Thanks, Tucker. So, in your little objects, many people picked up a photo of a child. And I'm a parent of a young child myself. And I'd like to start us off before we enter into this next part around DEI specifically and about how to move CSI's commitment to equity into more action. I'd like to just share a little story. And the story goes like this. So a mother was walking through the neighborhood with her young daughter. And they walked and they walked and they came across a group of men who were laying bricks at a construction site. The young girl, who, if you know young kids, was incredibly open and curious about what she saw. So she asked the bricklayer, "What are you doing?" And the first bricklayer says, "I'm building a wall." Still curious, She continues on and she asks the second bricklayer, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm creating a school," the second bricklayer responds. As you know, kids are very curious, so she keeps going and she approaches a third bricklayer. "What are you doing?" And the bricklayer looks at the work before him. He looks off into the distance, back at the young girl, and he says, "I am building an equitable school community that allows every child to thrive." I'll just repeat that again. He says, "I'm building an equitable school community that allows every child to thrive." And here's why this story is important as we approach the next section. See, we can look at our commitment to equity at several levels, and we have to, because they're all operating at the same time. You can't build a school without the bricks. But we know in the work that we do, sometimes we're focused in the moment on building the wall, of laying the bricks before us. And sometimes we're focused on building the school. And still others, we're focused on the impact and the ultimate goal of creating access to and building models of schools that best meet the needs of every child. So my invitation to you is actually, as we approach this conversation for the rest of our time together, just notice inside yourself and in collective community, just where we're zooming in and where there might be opportunities to actually see the broader possibility. So in a moment, I'm going to actually ask you to move into just some individual personal reflection. I don't yet have the tech that Tucker has, so I'm working from a bit of a disadvantage here. All right, here we go. Not as nice, but sufficient. So here's the invitation. This is a moment of individual reflection. So Tucker, if you want to hit the beautiful music, I invite you to do so. So in just a moment, I want you to consider CSI's commitment to equity. And I'd like you to consider why. Why CSI's commitment to equity matters or is important. Very specifically, if you have your journal, I'd like you to actually take a moment now and journal on why it matters to you. My pen is running out. Why it matters to you. So what about CSI's commitment to equity is important to you personally, individually? Take a few moments to really consider that question. And you might consider that question on any layers that the bricklayers gave us some inspiration, the first, second, or third bricklayer. And then I'd like you to consider maybe zooming out just a little bit into why CSI's commitment to equity matters to the schools and the students you serve. To the schools and the students you serve. And maybe you might even consider why CSI's commitment to equity matters to the world beyond the walls of your mission. And in just a moment, I'm going to invite you maybe just to share in the chat, or we'll take 3 or 4 shares verbally, perhaps your answer to the first question of why CSI's commitment matters to you, or if you're called to share at any other level. like to just invite your voices in. Thank you. See, a few people are beginning to look up. So if you feel like you're at a place where you'd like to share just anything that's come up for you about why this commitment to equity is important to you, I invite you to do so in the chat. I also invite 3 or 4 of you maybe to just give us your voice. Tom says, this reflects my commitment to serving all Colorado kids. Aligns squarely with my own personal commitment behind doing work in education, Eric. Better choices and outcomes for more kids. Education changes lives. Love to just invite a couple voices. Is there anyone who feels willing at this moment just to share aloud and bring your voice into the room about why this is important to you and maybe beyond? Well, hearing no voices, that's okay. You know, I like to call it a purposeful pause, and it's practicing the art of holding silence. It's good work, purposeful pause. So let me tell you where we're headed next. Antonio, I see you're off mute.
Yeah, I mean, nobody shared, so I thought I'd jump in and I'll share. I mean, I think for me, when I think about why equity matters, I mean, for CSI, but maybe just like broadly in the K-12 sector, I guess maybe like within CSI's role within the broader K-12 sector and a framing of equity for me is the current systems that most of us engage with, the public traditional K-12 systems, are exclusive. They exclude people. They're meant to. They exclude you based on the fact that you don't live in that district or the school boundary. They exclude you because you can't afford that school. They exclude you because your values are not being taught, maybe, or your history is not being there. And instead, our system's really meant to teach towards, like, you know, the bell curve, right? That top percent. You're teaching and educating to the middle. And in America, most of those tend to be, the system works very well for those who are slightly more affluent, whose families are more educated, who have more experience and expertise navigating the system. And oftentimes those people tend to look or come from or have similar backgrounds. And then you have all of these people, be that they are working class, that they are rural, that they are African American or Latino, they are new immigrants, they're LGBTQ, in which like that does not work for them. That structure where we're teaching to the middle, where we built a system to the middle, where people are excluded, is not equity. And instead, CSI, at the heart of what we should be doing, is allowing communities to come together and build educational experiences and environments in schools that fit for them. And so for me, like at the heart of this is people have different assets, they have barriers that are in their way, they have interests, they have wonderings, whatever, that are just unique and different, and trying to get everyone force fit into kind of one structure doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I think it's at the heart of what CSI is, and in all honesty, it's at the heart of what the charter school movement kind of started as. The issue I get worried about, and the thing that I care about in my own life and why I'm so focused on this, is even in a system in which in some ways it was started with equity, like let's have those folks who need something unique and personalized for whatever reason for them develop it, we can get in a situation where those folks can still be marginalized by the system or others and still cannot access it. And I think my biggest concern always for any of the work I've done is, are we building something that in the long run actually will only replicate the things that we hope to be overcoming in the first place? So I think that's why like I care a lot about this. That's why I think CSI is well positioned to do it. I think we do it in certain ways already. And I think there are ways for us to continue to strengthen our behaviors, systems, and so forth to only further that.
Antonio, I want to thank you for bringing your voice in. And because you couldn't see what I see, there were several moments as you were sharing that people were nodding. And so it seems like there was some resonance. And where we're headed for this next section is actually linking back to some of the values that you shared earlier around, as a collective, around how the best of CSI, the relational approach, some of the ways in which you interact and allowing people to not mandate but be influenced are the same values that I'd like to invite us into this, actually ideating about how to move equity into action for CSI so that, just to borrow Antonio's words, that we create something that maybe doesn't replicate the system. So Tucker, am I passing it back to you?
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to pass it back to Tucker.
That's great. Jennifer, thank you for sharing that. Can everybody just share any appreciation for Jennifer and just the way that she told that story, or any appreciation that you might have for her? Just pop that in the chat. We like to appreciate people, in case you haven't noticed, because appreciation, that's what the foundation of appreciative inquiry is, appreciation as well as inquiry. And so any appreciation that you have for Jennifer and just how she facilitated that would be great. Yeah, even that, Amanda. Oh, that was great. Just telling her thank you. That's a great little appreciation. So this next section is being grounded. And Jennifer, what I loved about what you just did and being able to help us, and Antonio, again, for your voice, and everybody who put in the chat too, being grounded in that place that we are, not only from the core values we talked about that relational approach, like Jennifer mentioned again, but also this grounding and why is this equity piece and work important, or why is this work important around DEI? So I'm going to hand it over to Jill for her to share a little bit, and then Terry's going to share a little bit as well about kind of where the organization has historically been in the past when it comes to DEI, some of the current things, but then we're going to get into a brainstorm specifically around how might we do a few different things. And we're literally going to use how might we questions. Again, I'll give you some instructions here in just a little bit around how might we and how we're going to do the brainstorm section. But I'm going to have Jill, hand it over to you, Jill, and then Terry, have you share after that. And then we're going to go into a rapid fire brainstorm section. All right. So Jill, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Tucker. My voice is going, so I'm going to make this a little shorter than I maybe initially planned. But it was great to start by hearing a little bit from each of you about your own convictions around equity. I remember when I first moved to Colorado, I grew up in a state that didn't have charter schools. And the idea of charter schools kind of captivated me because of some of the, pretty well documented data we have now about their ability to close the achievement gap and to create outcomes at scale that we hadn't seen in other ways in the public education system. So for me, that's kind of the heartbeat of equity in it for me. In terms of our own work as a board on equity, I just want to kind of remind you what the past couple of months have looked like. We put aside some time in January for our work session that we had. And at that time, we kind of started refining these definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion that the staff had started for us. And I actually feel like I learned something very valuable in the process of editing those. The executive committee looked at those in May. And what we kind of had ended up with was something that was more of a lowest common denominator definition than it was anything that anyone was particularly excited about. And I wanted to just address the definitions because for a while we had talked about those kind of in some way serving as a foundation for what we were going to do today. And I think in the process of planning the retreat, working with Thrive Impact, it feels to me like there's a lot more potential for us to agree and build some momentum and excitement around actionable things. So I'm not saying we'll never come back to the definitions, but I just wanted to acknowledge that that's not the focus of what we want to work on today. And I think that I feel like this has been an ongoing conversation really since the work session in January. And I've gotten a sense from some of you as well that you're eager to get to that actionable point. And I think the best use of our time today is along those lines. So I will pass it over to Terry to give us some context of in more detail of the work CSI's already done on equity.
Thanks, Jill. Tucker's my turn now. Time to go.
Yeah, you're up, Terry.
All right. So thanks for setting that context. Wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we got to where we are, some of the history, and so everyone is kind of starting from the same place. When I started in 2016, March 2016, the CSI board had already started this look and this consideration of equity. It was in the fall of 2015, before I was here, that there started to be a consideration about what are we going to do as an organization. Now, granted, it was a more narrow focus, but it was about what they called, what the board really referred to as closing the achievement gap at the time. And but what did that mean? And they really kind of had a focus on special education. And so when I came in March, I wanted to continue that work. There was already a commission that had for a report on special education in CSI schools and what was working, what wasn't working. I had a pretty good sense of that, being a former CSI school leader and working at the league. And I just picked up that baton and the rest of the staff and said, okay, we're going to go with this focus on special education and what are we doing, not doing, and how can we get better. And we did all kinds of things in those first few years of my work here at CSI. And then we fast forward, and I won't go through all the things that we did and some great accomplishments. We get to last summer in the midst of the social unrest and that this world and this country was experiencing. And we had to take a hard look at ourselves. Again, like everyone who's a thoughtful and conscientious person would say, let's look at ourselves, let's look at our organization, and what are we doing? And are there barriers that we have in place that we're unaware of? So that conversation led to the board passing a resolution last summer on the equity resolution. And that was really an important step. and a marker for our staff and for our schools and for the rest of the stakeholders to say, we're going to dive into this work. We're not going to shy away from it. We're actually going to lean into it. And in the last year, we've done that at the staff level and at the board level. You've seen all the pre-work, some of the things that we have done in terms of from working on forming our groups, our DEI group, and having our staff participate in that in terms of defining diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had equity chats, and we had coffee chats. We had book reads, and we had podcasts, and everything we could think of as a collective, because it wasn't one person coming up with these ideas. It's like, how about this, and how about that, and how do we get engaged in this? How do we change our HR practices? We did all kinds of things over this last year as a staff, so we would learn much more about this work. It was a learning. And some of us participated in things outside of CSI, so we could bring those great ideas. Claire and Ryan did, and Jess did the Systems Impact Institute, talking about equity throughout the year and bringing their ideas to us. Ryan and myself, we participated in the Authorizing for All, which with authorizers throughout the country, and really diving deep into the anti-racist approach to the work that we do. And so it was us going out into the world nationally and at the state level and participating in groups that were doing similar work, bringing that back to CSI, and as a staff really diving into it. So I'm not going to enumerate everything that we've done. I'm just going to kind of overall, there was, let's lean into this. And from that, we would take what we had learned to really come up with a more formalized path forward. But that kind of lays the groundwork. And I think there are lots of things that are at the center of our work. But it's hard not to mention the student screener and the equity screener. So that in and of itself was there to say to our schools, we're going to reflect back to you how well you're doing in these areas. And we did that several years ago. And we just wanted to get better at it and better at it and get better at it. There were bumps along the way. There were bumps in terms of not everyone having the same opinion at the staff level about how to do a screener. There were, discussions on what do we include, what do we not include? How do we approach schools? How do we not approach schools? What does that look like? And from that, we spent this whole year doing a revision of that. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, what does this mean for the student? What does this mean for that student that's attending one of our schools? And I have the great fortune, and I see it as I'm thankful every day that I was a school leader. And I was a school leader at a CSI school. And it was before we had some of these sophisticated tools, just kind of out there trying to figure it out. And I was not alone. Happened to be that Ryan was on my team, my leadership team, way back when at High Point Academy. And I had great thought partners. But we were, the school is a very diverse community, very racially, culturally diverse. Economically, most of the schools and families are in poverty. They qualify for free and reduced lunch. Very diverse group. And there's this one student that will always stick in my mind that really brings this work to light for me. And so when we talk about this, this is not abstract. This is not a widget that we're making. This is about students' lives, and this is why I do this work. So when you ask me, why do I do this? I do it because truly it's the student. And we all have different gifts and talents in how we change people's lives. And I don't claim to be the best 5th grade teacher. I don't claim to be the best, 2nd grade teacher. I'd like to provide resources for those teachers that can change lives. And this one student, Amadou, was part of, he came from Ethiopia, he and his family. They were fairly new to the country. We had a large Ethiopian population at High Point. And this one student came to us when he was in around 2nd or 3rd grade. he had a lot of anger issues. He really struggled with how to contain himself in class because, as he told me many times, his fellow students just really made him angry. They did dumb things. They took his pencil. They got in the way. They were noisy, or they wouldn't listen to him. The teacher was frustrating to him, and he had a lot of these feelings. And so, what did he do? He acted out. He threw fits. He had yelling episodes. He might throw something. He would yell back at the teacher. And so most of the time he ended up in my office. And he would join the list, the line of kids that were waiting to see a dean, assistant principal, or the principal to talk about the discipline issues. And I became very attached to this one, to Amadou. And Amadou and I had a good friendship, and I got to know his family really well. His dad was the one who did all the interaction with the staff. And so he and I talked a lot. And he had very different discipline philosophies because in Ethiopia, their culture believes in different things. And he said, I don't understand this American way. And could you help me? The reason I tell you this story is because I, as a school leader, wanted to make sure I understood how to help this family and this boy. I wanted to, as a school leader, look at the school and what were we doing with our discipline practices and why were there so many Black and brown kids that were sitting outside the office. They weren't the only ones, but why? Why could we not deal with the fact that almost all of them were boys by far? We had our challenging girls, but they were mostly boys. And why was it that teachers were just throwing them out of their classroom? And the teachers were really frustrated when I would say, you have to bring them back into the class. So what did I learn? I learned that if this work at CSI, if we could have an equity screener that could show me as a school leader where I was not serving kids, and then say, but don't worry, here are some resources. Here are things for you to think through. And guess what? If you want to teach your staff to be better about this and how to understand how to treat students that we're just not throwing them out of class, here are some ways to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm going to tell you these are some ways. So you ask me why I do this equity work and what we've done up to this point. It's because I think of those students. And that's just one. And I think the equity screener helps us get there. And that's just one tool that we have. I'm going to stop talking because I just wanted to share my Amadou story. So thank you for listening.
Terry, thank you so much for sharing. I'd love for anybody to share just any appreciation for what she just shared. I don't know. Yeah, Amanda putting the heart up. Appreciate that. Please share some appreciations for what Terry, that personally for me anyway, was incredibly inspiring. We were actually in our back channel and Colleen said, she said, wow, or Jennifer said, I suddenly feel inspired to join CSI, you know? Yeah, Tom, thank you. Motivation, Terry. That's great. Anybody else share any appreciation for what, not only the leadership that Terry has had around this work within DEI and all their initiatives and all the journey that she shared at the beginning, but also that personal story. Any other appreciations for Terry? Pop it in the chat or you can verbally share briefly if you'd like. Thank you, Claire. So important to remember. Terry, you want to honor your practitioner's heart and your ability to truly notice and see how connected equity is to the real lives of young people. Fantastic. All right, so we're going to transition into a little bit of a faster moment. We're going to brainstorm. So here, let me, team, if you can spotlight me here in a minute, that'd be great. Some of the things that we've been talking about, of course, have been, you know, not only what Terry just talked about, and I'll show you a document that we can all share with you. Let me see, where did it go? I have it right here. It was this document. This is what she was really going through, but we let her just verbally share. But this was some of the historic efforts that had gone through and the current efforts as well that she had gone through. But then also, of course, if you all remember, your own CSI's commitment to equity and some of these whereases. And so basically what we've done is taken some of the pieces around this, as well as some of the work that Terry was just talking about, and looking at ways, what might make the most sense for how might we engage the board and the staff's creativity today during this retreat. And so I'm going to hand it over to Jill briefly, just share what are some of those questions. I'm going to put them up on my iPad actually. So Jennifer, if you can spotlight Jill and me, so that way she can actually see both sides, that'd be great.
Well, fancy.
Yeah, you like that? So Jill, I'd like you to share with everybody what the questions were that you all came up with actually for what we want to be engaging in the brainstorm. And then I'll give some instructions around how we do that moving forward.
Great. So this first question is kind of focused like externally facing. How might we revise existing or establish new policies and practices to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion among the CSI portfolio of schools? So this could be things like around how we go about renewals, or further changes to the equity screener, or how we use the equity screener in our work. Could be how we approach applications for new schools or our advocacy work. So how might we change our work with our portfolio of schools? The second question is, how might we revise existing or establish new organizational policies and practices to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion within CSI? So this is more of an internal facing question. So what would it look like to actually apply an equity lens in decision making, which is something we mentioned in the equity resolution? What can we be doing to build a more diverse staff? How might we use our dollars differently within CSI? And the last question is, how might we take the next step in our learning journey around equity to sustain our commitment long term? What do we need for this to be something that we're able to hold on to and implement, over time? One of the things I think about is how, every year there's changes to our board composition, but we want the work that we do that's effective to be lasting. So what might we do to sustain our commitment over time?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for letting us use your voice a little bit more for today. So here's how this is going to work. This is called a one conversation brainstorm. And basically what we're going to do is have you reflect on each question and journal or write down your answers or your different ideas. So this is meant to be a brainstorm. And who knows the number one rule to a brainstorm? Who knows it? Who knows the number one rule to a brainstorm? There are no bad ideas in a brainstorm. That is the number one rule to a brainstorm. So this could be a wacky idea. This could be a not so wacky idea. But what ideas do you have, for example, around each one of these questions? I will put them back up on my screen, of course. We're going to go through each one. So we're basically going to give you 1 minute to reflect and journal on that specific question. And then the second part of this section is where we're going to actually have you verbally share those. We'll see. We'll give it about 3 minutes for the first time, but where it's rapid fire. So Ryan, you might have something, and then Jill, you have something. I'll say, awesome, thanks. Next. And while we're doing that, Jennifer is actually going to be typing feverishly in the background. She'll probably share her screen. Yeah, she's got her super typing fingers going right now. And we're going to gather as many ideas. So this is meant to be rapid fire. This is meant to speed up here a little bit. I'll play some a little bit more speedy music too while we're reflecting. And then we're going to do this for each one of the how might we questions that your board and your staff, that some of the team had come up with in order to engage your creativity. After this, we're going to be synthesizing all this down into something. Actually, I'll give you another way of looking at it. Is we're kind of opening the aperture up a little bit with this how might we question with each one of these. And then we're going to actually have you go down. We're not going to go to the point of decision where we're synthesizing down to a decision. We're going to stop ahead of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to have you go into small groups and actually synthesize what actually came out of this brainstorm and come up with some of the top ideas that came out of that, as well as some potential action items that you can do. The decisions will happen afterward. I'm not sure how that process will go. You can ask Terry and Jill how they'd like to do that. But we're really just doing a synthesis section immediately after this. Does that make sense? So it's going to get a little bit more fast-paced, a little bit more creative. Thank you for going with us in that more connective, belonging, or as the lawyer called it, touchy-feely crap section. Just kidding. He actually literally said something like that. It was really great. But we're going to go into this part right now. So I'm going to put the question up. And then after that, I will say that when we are in this vocal share section, this is not a long diatribe or monologue about some idea you have. This is like literally share your idea in 2 sentences or less, right? It's meant to be rapid fire and quick. If we need to get context for your idea a little bit later, that's fine. We can totally do that. All right. Make sense? Sort of, kind of? Mostly? Any questions? Any dad jokes? No? I know Ryan's coming in hot. That's what I saw anyway in the chat. All right. So everybody grab your pen and play a little music here. Nope, that's not the one I want. This is the one I want. All right. So the first question is, whoops, let me scroll back up. How might we revise existing or establish new policies and practice to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion amongst the CSI portfolio of schools? So think about this question from your perspective, either as a board member or as a staff member. Perhaps that's our role in the annual renewal process, equity screener, charter applications, or advocacy and legislative work. I'm going to give you 1 minute, put a counter up, and go. Write down as many ideas as you have on your piece of paper. Because this is the first one, I'll give you a little bonus time. We'll add just another 30 seconds. Watch this. Here we go. Oops. 30 seconds. Little bonus time. What ideas might you have? All right, everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up, head nod, dance move, something. You ready to rock? Got some ideas? All right, Jennifer, you got your Google Doc ready to go? All right, so I'm gonna put a 3-minute, yep, that is a 3-minute timer. Ready? Basically, whoever wants to share, verbally share, and we'll go. Just don't forget to unmute yourself. And this will be our first shot. So who has an idea?
Authorize more unique school models.
Awesome, Luke. Thank you. Who's next?
Require schools to have an equity plan as part of their application.
Fantastic, Eric. Thank you. What's next?
And make that part of the renewal process.
Fantastic, Tom. Well, who's next? Who else?
Be more explicit about having equity-related metrics on our website, so we have transparency that reflects our values.
Great, Eric. Who's next?
And on Eric's, I would just say, and potentially on cars as well.
More explicit about having equity-related metrics on cars. Is that right? Gotcha, Brenda.
As a part of cars, potentially.
Yep. Fantastic. Who's next? And anybody can share, by the way, if you have anybody who has an idea. Board staff, anybody. Who else?
Providing schools more resources to address issues of equity.
Great. Thanks, Claire.
Claire, I would specifically add enrollment to that. Schools that are struggling to enroll more diverse students, providing support specifically around that.
Thanks, Jill. Who's next?
Conversely to that, we could provide some kind of designation for schools that have demonstrated positive impacts on equity.
Mm-hmm. Great, Noah. Thanks for sharing. Who's next?
Think about order of operations here. Where do we start first?
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Who's next?
Support schools in reducing barriers to access like transportation and food service.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Who's next?
Understand the challenges.
Great. Jennifer, you're in Slack now. There you go. That was our back channel, by the way. All right. Who's next? We're
I got
talking about you
lost,
behind your backs. Just kidding. Who's next?
We could develop some questions we ask schools when they're making their renewal presentations around equity topics.
Great. Thanks, Jill. Any last ideas?
Equity goals on UIPs.
Equity goals on UIPs? Fantastic. Awesome. All right. If we missed any ideas, go ahead and pop them up in the chat. Colleen will be grabbing those and popping those up in there as well. Jennifer, nicely done. And all of you, nicely done. We are looking for making sure everybody has a voice. And so if you have not shared, we would love for you, invite you to share any idea throughout the rest of these How Might We questions. And let me put on. All right. Second equity, whoops, wrong one. Second question, how might we revise existing, is this the same one? No, this is right. How might we revise existing or establish new organizational policies and practices to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion within CSI? Perhaps that's applying an equity lens in decision-making, increasing diversity of staff, or budget considerations. And 1 minute, go. Oops, that's 30 seconds. Wait for it. All right, 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Wrap up any ideas? Anybody need bonus time? Nah. All right, y'all are good. I had a little person join me, by the way, in case you're wondering. You heard a little kid voice. This is my daughter, Ella. She's 8. All right. We're going to turn it over to Jennifer. And same process like we did before. So any ideas and go. Who's got the first idea?
Develop a more targeted recruitment and hiring process.
Great, Eric. Thank you. Who's next?
Make specific diversity goals part of executive director performance.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Who's next?
Flexibility in work arrangements and locations.
Thanks, Janet.
DEI coaches for leadership team.
DEI coaches for leadership team. Thanks, Antonio. Who's next?
Leverage our financial resources to support historically disenfranchised or marginalized communities.
Okay. Thank you. Who's next? What other ideas?
provide reports to the board on staff demographics so that they can work from facts and statistics about staff.
Fantastic, Amanda. Thank you. Who's next?
Ensuring there's opportunities for staff voices to be heard.
Thanks, Amanda. Who's next?
This one's a little bit of a riff on the first one, but revising recruitment processes and practices to maximize diversity within candidate pools.
Great, thanks, Amanda. By the way, riffs are awesome. Thanks for riffing. Anybody else?
We could encourage young and diverse talent to think about pursuing education pathways that could lead them to be CSI employees, like possibly even working with our high schools or our early colleges.
Thanks, Jill.
I have another riff on that one.
Riff.
Build those pipelines, the talent pipelines with community colleges and local universities.
Great.
And even some of our high schools.
Fantastic, Amanda. Who else? Going once?
Let's keep riffing. Look at our professional development offerings within the organization to see how that can support advancement in other ways, right? We're a small organization, so how else can we increase opportunity?
Great. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Ryan, we'll end at that. If you have any others that you wanted to add, pop them up in the chat. We'll capture them and put them up in this document. Here, don't choke me, darling. Sorry. All right. The next step, the next how might we? Same process as we've been doing. Let me put a timer up. Is how might we take the next step in our learning journey around equity to sustain our commitment long term? Again, think about this from your perspective, whether you're a board member or staff. But around training, diversity on board, explicit time on equity strategy, or ideas for living into our equity resolution in a way that respects our individual views. By the way, you may have some overlap with previous how might we's. That's not a big deal. Just still bring them out here again, because we're going to be going and synthesizing these down, and we'll see if there's themes even across the different questions. So don't worry about that. 1 minute and go. All right, so wrapping up your thoughts. Anybody need some bonus time? You got some ideas? Got some ideas? There we go, head nods, appreciate that. All right. 3 minutes. Jennifer's gonna put her screen up again. And ideas, go.
Intentionally learning from people in the portfolio and schools in the portfolio who are successful in this area.
Thanks for stealing that, Luke.
Sounds like Tom resonates, so maybe that's a +1 for that one from Tom. There we go. Who's next?
And outside the portfolio, identify model organizations or institutions that we'd like to follow or learn from.
Fantastic, Noah. Thank you. Who's next?
Think about preconditions for success in this area. What foundations do we need to build before we engage in this work so that we're not stumbling?
Thanks, Ryan. Who's next?
I think making equity a regular conversation and embedded in our work as opposed to, once a year conversation.
Fantastic, Brenda. Who's next? What other ideas do you have?
I would say board and staff training, just from the practitioner point of view, on HR practices and legal limitations with recruitment.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Who's next?
Maybe DEI as a part of board member onboarding or orientation.
Thanks, Amanda O. Who's next?
Elevate Antonio's and Terry's like DEI coaches and mentoring ideas from earlier. I think those are great ideas.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for sharing resonance too. That's helpful for sure. Who's next?
Regular reporting at the board meetings on equity metrics across the portfolio.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Who's next?
Looking at board operating procedures with the DEI lens.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Who's next?
Ensuring that this work is embedded in job descriptions and job duties as opposed to just an add-on.
Right. Thank you. Who's next?
Reporting and reflections to staff as well as the board. So do the similar practice with the staff as you would do with the board.
Great. Thanks, Terry. Any last idea? All right. If we missed any for that particular one, go and pop that up in the chat. We'll make sure and add that in. So here's how we're going to do this next section. So as I was sharing before, we just opened up the aperture of sorts. This is called divergent thinking. If you're a design thinking junkie like I am, this is called divergent thinking. We just did that, right? We just added a whole bunch of ideas out. There were no bad ideas, but now we're going to go into small groups and start to create the synthesis process. So I want to share with you a little bit about what that might look like. Go to my other, hold on a second. Organize my papers here for a minute. And basically the process for this, I'm going to put these up in the chat as well, is we're going to have 5 minutes where we're going to go deeper. Hold on, let me turn the music off. It's driving me nuts. 5 minutes where you're going to go deeper with the question. So we're going to have 3 different groups, 1 for each question. We're going to have 5 minutes where you're going to go deeper in each of the questions. Anything we missed or maybe need to add. We're going to do 5 minutes of theming. So you might see some commonalities and themes that are happening within all the different ideas that came out of that. And then the bulk of the time are going to be spent with 10 minutes of synthesizing down to the top 2 to 3 actionable ideas. And you see in the chat, I said high effort or high impact and low effort. So let me give you a frame of reference of sorts for how to think about that. Hold on, let me pull it up. Oh, that looks weird. So this is a frame of reference that we like to use a lot of times, which is what is something that is high effort, or not high effort, high impact, I should say, not high effort. What is something that is high impact and low effort? So for example, if you use this, hold on, let me make this a little bit bigger. For example, if something is high impact and low effort, that is a heck yeah, right? That's something we want to do. It has the impact we're looking for and requires the least amount of effort. That is obviously in the yes category. If something is low impact and low effort, that's kind of a maybe. If something is high effort and high impact, that also might be a maybe for now anyway, because maybe that just is a much bigger project. And if something is high effort and low impact, that is the heck no category. So this is just a frame of reference for thinking about what might these top actionable ideas actually be? This is actually the document that you're going to be working in. We actually are going to have moderators in each one. It's going to be me and one of them. Amanda O, you're going to be in one. Thank you, Amanda O. You're awesome. And then Jennifer's going to be in another one. Colleen, will you actually send Amanda O her proper link for this one? I don't think we've sent that over to Amanda yet. It'd be helpful for her to have it. And you can see here the instructions I just gave her here. There's a bonus here, which is really if you have the ability to do possible next steps for all of you overachievers, you can get some possible next steps around those actionable ideas, then that would be great. Does that make sense? Now, I want to acknowledge that anytime we're synthesizing anything, there's going to be some creative tension. And so one of the things I just encourage you all to do, and I invite you all to do, is to stay curious about somebody. This is on the moderator side. We're trying to get everything down into something that are these top 3. And so stay as curious, continue to use those relational values that you've all talked about, and get to the place where you can ultimately come out with 2 to 3 actionable ideas. Each group will present. Amanda, if you would like to be the presenter, you can, or if you'd like somebody else in your group to present. In my or Jennifer's group, it'll be better for either one of the board members or the staff members in our groups to present. And so just be thinking about that. Make sure you have a presentation, somebody to present these at the end. Other than that, did I get all the instructions? I think I got them all. Any questions? Any thoughts? Amanda O's ready to go. I can tell. Does everybody need to do a stretch break or anything like that? You doing okay? Feeling okay? All right. All right. Well, I think I've got mine. Is everybody, Colleen, are you ready to go to send us into those breakout rooms? Fantastic. Colleen will be giving prompts along the way, just so that way it keeps us on track, so that us as moderators are able to know where we're at. So, but everybody else will be able to know too where we're at in terms of the 5-minute, 10-minute type of process. So, Colleen, whenever you're ready, send us away. Which room am I in? I'm in room 1, right?
It's not giving me the option to join.
Oh, Jennifer. Jennifer,
Oh,
click the
I can put you
click
in.
the breaker rooms.
Oh.
Yeah.
Should I go to room 3? Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, I did it. I thought you were a co-host.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. What groups got into bonus? Anybody? Our group did. Anybody else? Oh, yes. We're the ones with buttons. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and present. Is everybody back in? Sorry, I should probably take a look. It's always weird when you're in the breakout room and you're facilitating too.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, we're gonna just do it group by group. So we'll start with group one, which was, oh yes, thank you. So group one, which was Tom. Who was in our group? Tom, Claire, Terry, and where is she? Janet. There you are. I was looking through all the faces. Thank you, Tom, Claire, Janet, and Terry, and me in the group. Tom is going to be our presenter. So I'm going to share my screen.
I was going to ask you to do that because I didn't take any real notes. So
no, yeah, that's fine. They're all here.
Okay, so obviously we had a lot of a lot of items on here, so it kind of made it maybe easier to do our job. The themes really came down to providing support for schools. And you guys, I don't need to read them all, but really talking about then metrics, measurements, and accountability, and then incentivizing. And then in looking at the effort impact, there was also a component of that maybe other groups came up with, which is timeline too, because some of these things, we felt like maybe had high effort, high impact, but the time frame for realizing some of those goals might be more difficult. So we tried to kind of take the timeline out of it. So the real top actionable 3 items were encouraging schools who are doing well to expand, and we can review the existing portfolio to kind of glean from that. Equity metrics on cars. That's a higher effort one, but with developing Cars 3.0, we felt like equity could definitely be part of Cars 3.0. And then developing, questions or an entire section dedicated to equity on renewal presentations and applications. And we talked about that being shared by both board and staff. So anything that anybody from group wants to add?
Tom, I think you crushed it.
Cool.
Pretty much. Awesome. So that's what we got from group one. Everybody give Tom a little quick unmute yourself. Round of applause. That's nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, that's good. Good job, Tom. Thanks for taking one for the team there. Group two, I think that was Amanda O. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. Who wants to present from group two? Did they delegate it to you, Amanda?
We didn't actually decide, so I can do it.
Oh, okay.
We got nowhere near as far as group one did, so I hate to follow that.
No, it's okay. Every group's a little different. It's not a problem. Here, I'll put it up for you just a second.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Is that you?
Thank you. Okay, so we did go into a couple of these and just added a little bit more to the top bullets. We saw some themes. Oh yeah, we don't have to go through all of those. We saw some themes coming out, basically data, capturing data both at the staff level and at the school level, figuring out which data the board needs to see, what they don't have, what they need. Okay. Embedding expectations into rubrics. That was a theme we also saw. And then mentoring and coaching, making sure that staff has the external supports and resources that they need. That was a big theme. And then focusing just on inclusion within CSI on that mentoring and relationship building as well.
Fantastic. Top actionable ideas?
Yeah, so we didn't exactly finish that pipeline one. Is not a fully formed idea. But starting at the top, just a low effort, high impact one would be setting up a mentoring program or professional development for leadership team, staff, and board. surveying the staff annually just on DEI things, how staff is feeling, using the data that we currently have and getting the data that we don't. And then one that Ryan kind of talked about and can maybe add to is just utilizing our financial resources and thinking about how and where we're spending the money, the funds that we have, as far as procurement, contracts, researching how other organizations are doing things as well.
Fantastic. Anything else from group 2? Awesome. Nicely done, Amanda O. Nicely done. Way to moderate too. Sounds great.
A lot of respect for you guys.
Oh, you did fine. Not a problem. It was totally fine. You know, and just how do you take some of these and keep adding action plans to them, right? All right, group 3. Who's the presenter from there?
Our presenter, I believe, is Amanda K. Maybe I got out of the room before she finished saying my name. Okay. So some themes that we came up with were, there was quite a bit about learning and just training. So learning from people whose outcomes we are trying to achieve and really identifying the models and resources that we want to follow. We talked about the need to define measurements prior to making reports or creating report outs, whether it be in CARS or renewal, on the website, to the board, whatever that might be. There's definitely a theme of a need or desire to report on different pieces and parts of this information. And then there's another theme around regularity, and having this embedded in the work of both staff and the board. So our top 2 to 3 specific and actionable ideas, we really thought the first one would probably need to be some discussions around asking ourselves as an authorizer, what are we shooting for in terms of success for equity? What does that look like? And then from there, identifying schools in the portfolio that succeed really in that equity space that we and other schools can learn from. Looking, so we kind of noted some of the different measures that we might look at. And I don't know where we are in time, but I think everyone could probably read those. And then adding on the regularity piece, that's number 3 and 4, adding that inquiry and action to board meetings, adding it to job descriptions, all of this note with the little asterisks that it sounds easier than it actually is to do that. And then making regular commitments to action between board meetings and checking in on them and recommitting to that new action.
Fantastic. Amanda, you like crushed it there. That was fine. You did a great job. Everybody, let's unmute. Give Amanda a quick round of applause. Thank you. Very nice, very nice. Real quick, before we take a 5-minute break, curious what you appreciated or just something that resonated with you about how everybody just showed up to that whole brainstorm experience around DEI. Curious, any reflections or appreciations before we go into a quick break? Anything? Was that fun? Antonio, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. I mean, I think that Jill framed this at the beginning, and she and I had talked about this coming into this session around, we were trying to get to some shared definitions so folks knew what we were all talking about the same thing, right? And to Jill's point, it kind of ended up being like a drive to the bottom, a race to the bottom on the definitions. And then all of a sudden we just opened this up, and I don't know if other people saw this or felt this way, but I felt like, there is some shared commonality in the way we think about some of this, and there is still some that is not. But I thought that the things we put out there are definitely in the direction, and I think that there were people in this who shared some that I was like, I don't think I would have imagined that they would have put forward that strategy for DEI based on some of the ways we were discussing and debating definitions of DEI. And so for me, I thought this actually ended up feeling very good, and I hope it did for other people, but it re-grounded. There's a lot of people in this that are, we are actually on similar pages and we're willing to act. So I thought that was great.
Fantastic. Thank you, Antonio. And just a couple people also in the chat too, people ready with concrete ideas and strategies. That was great. Y'all were right on with that. Loved hearing everybody chime in. Fantastic. Any other last quick appreciations? Brenda, I saw you unmute. I saw it happen. Go ahead, Brenda.
But it's not. And I think maybe I don't want to delay the break, but I was just curious to hear more about the definition and what that like race to the bottom comment was and what happened with our definition, and just would love to get background on what that comment was.
Gotcha. Let me, Brenda, I'm wondering if you can connect with perhaps Jill on that to learn a little bit more about that, and maybe that will be a good conversation for another meeting as well, if that's okay. It's a great comment. I appreciate you bringing it up. All right, great. All right, well, let's take 5 minutes. I'm gonna put my 5-minute timer. That's a 20-minute timer. I have too many timers. There we go. 5 minutes. Come back at 3:37. Go get away from your screen, hug a tree, hug a person, eat some food, drink some water, do something uninspiring. We'll see you back in 5 minutes. All right, 1 minute. Start making your way back. Come on back. Come on back. How's the break? Anybody do anything great? Amazing? I got water. That's what I did. That was my uninspiring moment of the day. Luke, what'd you do in your break? Oh, what'd you do, Antonio?
Continuing to somewhat safely drive my wife and I across the country.
Fantastic.
I got another diet or Coke Zero Cherry.
Oh.
It's like the best thing ever made.
That is seriously one of the best things.
Poison. It's pure poison. But I love it.
But I love it.
I also drink whiskey, which is, I mean, that's just poison. You're just poisoning your body, but I love that too.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Well, we have our next section. This is our final section, which is really going over all the goals. I thought this song might be appropriate for all of you around this particular next section. We are going to be going through ED overview of goals and presentations from some of the staff. Hold on, let me mute that out. There we go. Sorry, Terry, what did you say? You checked on your daughter's horse show and all reports are that she did great? That is awesome. Good job, Terry's daughter. I just noticed that. Cool. So we're going to be going through, I know at the previous board meeting, oh, yes, Jennifer, nicely done. I know at the previous board meeting went through some of the past goals from this last year. I'm going to hand it over to Jill to give a quick high-level overview, of particularly around this section. And then we're going to use the strategic plan document. Let me pull up something real quick. We wanted to make sure that we were having the same conversation the entire time. And so we're going to be using this somewhat as a visual, where we're going to focus each of the conversations around each one of these three goals. And so just using that as our organizing sort of document / principle. So we're basically, what we're going to do is after Jill shares for just a minute, we're going to go through and we're going to go through each goal. So we'll do goal 1, and then we're going to do a reflection on goal 1 on any questions you might have, as well as two specific reflections, which is what did you like about what you heard and what would you like to see? So it's a kind of a way of looking at what resonated with you and if is there anything that you'd like to shift. So we're going to do that for each goal. So each goal will have that kind of a section all to itself. So after goal 1, then we'll go to goal 2, then we'll go to goal 3. So it'll be, y'all are good at this. You're almost veterans at this kind of like facilitation stuff. So anyway, without further ado, Jill, I'm going to hand it over to you to give a high level overview to the goals and where we're at. And then we'll go into goal 1.
Great. So setting these goals annually is something that we always do at the retreat. One thing we did a little differently this year, we typically at the retreat, we do both the review of the last year and the forward looking. So this year we separated those and we did Terry's review at the board meeting on Tuesday. And that I think actually has set us up well for today, because we very intentionally did the connecting and the DEI stuff before we're having this goal conversation, so that hopefully the goals are kind of building on what we've done today. So just a couple of reminders, the board really has one employee, which is Terry. And so the goals that we set for Terry are probably the very best lever that we have for setting the course of the organization. And our approach to setting goals, this is maybe mostly for our newer board members, we have the strategic plan that Trevor showed. We have basically 3 buckets of goals that have stayed the same. I actually don't know when those originated. Terry, you may know that date off the top of your head, but the 3 buckets stay the same. And what we update each year and what we're going to be working on updating now is the strategies for achieving those goals and the metrics we're going to use to know if we're going in the right direction. So we will hear from Terry and her leadership team on what they're proposing for this year. And then we have the chance to give additional input and refining and reflecting on that. And we're not making decisions today. This is sort of the like input reflective process. And we will actually vote on the actual goals at a future board meeting. And we specifically, because we're not making the decision today, we wanted to include the staff in on the discussion as well, because we're eager to hear your input, your experts in each of your areas.
Awesome. Fantastic, Jill. Thanks for giving the quick overview on that and the process. What we are going to do is similar to what she just shared before Terry kicks off. Again, as she shared, this is a similar process to what we did. How might we, remember how we did this with the how might we's? Basically, we're going to do this again. Instead of how might we's, it's goal, and have Terry be able to share at a high level. Again, allow for some time for reflections on like and like to see, and that can be rapid fire. And then we should have enough time to go into small groups and do any more brief synthesis, I should say, not as long as the last one, but a little more brief synthesis. Again, we're not making decisions here. We're more synthesizing in order to make decisions later, just to give the visual to Jill what you just shared. So Terry, goal 1, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Tucker. And Jill. And Jill is a trooper getting through all this with a cold this week. So thank you, Jill. So I'm going to keep this as high level as possible. I wanted to just kind of go over some of the pre-work and make sure there are connections that how everything's connected to it. So the strategic plan, as Jill said, we worked on that several years ago. When I came on board, there were executive director goals. We then later on just developed a strategic plan and stuck those goals in there. We keep them pretty similar from year to year. The 3 major buckets, which is really looking at our externally, what the work we're doing as an authorizer throughout the state and throughout the country, and really impacting the educational landscape as goal 1, and goal 2 being really focused on our portfolio, and goal 3 really focused on our staff. And this past year in the proposed goals that you see, we did, I did add some things around board work, because it is important that I am performing well in that area in terms of recruiting board members and onboarding board members and providing board members the work what they need. So I did add some things on that, but those are the 3 major buckets. Also, what we've done in the past and what you had in your pre-work is that each director would present what are the major initiatives and goals that he or she has in each of those departments. And then those goals then are connected to the ED goals. We're not gonna have those presentations because it takes a lot of time and you already have that pre-work done. So we want to have more time for discussion. I also want to note that the measures of success that's what changes every year. And so the goal and the objectives have stayed pretty similar, and then the measures of success have changed. So that's where we get more granular. This past year, for the 2021 school year, there was additional COVID specific goals or measures of success, because we went in with obviously COVID and we really wanted to say, how is this shifting in the midst of a pandemic? This year, you'll see in the proposed goals, DEI goals that are part of, or measures of success as part of each of the goals. And then each department has their own DEI initiatives that they're proposing. So all of it should be kind of connected. And again, this is all proposed, and that's why we want to make sure that we're getting input from the board throughout today, that we have input on goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3. Now, we could take the time to go through all the measures of success, but we could also just put that in the chat and for each goal, and that would give us the basis for discussion. Tucker, what do you think?
Sure. You're talking, just to make sure I have the exact document that you're talking about, you're referring to this one. Is that correct?
Yes. So we could focus on, as you said, the strategic plan in terms of looking at the goals and the objectives, but they haven't really changed too much from year to year, as you noted. your staff had noted too, that measures of success is really where the rubber meets the road, as they say, and what we're going to hold accountable. So
Terry, how about I share my screen for when you go through goal 1, and then I'll scroll down to goal 2 as well.
Perfect.
And then we can share the document. Everybody should have it in their inbox, but we can share the link to the document afterwards if that works.
Perfect. And can you give me a time check? How much time do we want to spend in presenting this? Because I'm assuming most people have read it. So something we'll go through quickly. We're not going to go through the directors presenting each of their departments just in the interest of time. It's 3:47.
Team, Colleen or Jennifer, did you check the time? I think we have about, if you can get through goal 1, do a quick presentation, and then we'll do the like and like to see, maybe like 4 minutes for each goal for you.
Okay, I'll keep it. I'll keep it pretty quick. So leadership team and I did talk earlier today and yesterday to make sure that we're on the same page. So they're comfortable with that you've done your pre-work and that we're just going to keep this short. So they will not be presenting. As you look at goal 1 and you look at the measures of success, we continue to have communication goals. We think that's really important for the new board members. You may not know that we didn't even have a communication department when I first came on, and Janet's really led that initiative, and Amanda. So we have communication goals. We have a communication equity initiative. We continue to work. Some of these are just expanding the work that we've already done, a relationship with schools, districts, or harbor masters that support high quality choices. We don't have, the board, I'd love to get board's input. Should we have specific numbers to each one of these like we've done in the past, or should we leave it more open-ended? That's for discussion. Number 4, maintain visibility with state and national peers through engagement in 10 activities. That one we did get specific, such as project collaborations, working groups, conference meetings, and presentations. And for the board members that went through the 2021 goals, you can see how we then really make sure that's diffused throughout the whole staff, leadership team, and myself. It's just not one person doing that work. Number 5, develop a relationship that increases the capacity and sustainability of rural charter schools. It's something we still are focused on, and we have been for the last few years, is what are we doing for our rural schools? And there's more that we can do. We have made some progress, but I think that we're not there yet with providing all the support that we can for our rural schools. Number 6, engage in advocacy that seeks to protect or expand charter schools, autonomy, and innovation. Again, pretty open-ended, but love to get more feedback from board about what kind of advocacy they'd like to see. 7, influence practices of fellow charter school authorizers. That's something we take quite seriously as a model authorizer every year, and we've done quite a bit of work, and we want to continue to do that, both in terms of working directly. Like, for instance, Ryan and his team have been coaching and will be continuing to coach other authorizers and serve as a mentor. We share best practices. We support and partner with other authorizers, work like that. 8, increase the support of autonomy, innovation charters for CSI by 2 stakeholders. So we're always looking to get more support. And in this kind of environment that we find ourselves in, we know that's not easy, but that's critical that we do that. So continuing to find that support and need folks to come out and be public about it too. It makes a difference. And then 9, influence decision-making that ensures that systems appropriately address the unique needs and positions of charters in the state of Colorado. So very outward-facing, this work, and but ultimately to the benefit of our schools and our students. So that is just a quick overview of proposed goals or this goal for 21-22. Does that help in kind of setting the framework, Tucker, so we can have?
Yeah, fantastic. So why don't we have a section where we'll just see if there's any questions that anybody has. Was that helpful to have that up on the screen for just a minute? All right, let me put that back up. Let me adjust this real quick because it was getting all kinds of funky. All right, hold on. So just for 1 minute, any questions that you have particularly around this, and then we can go into the like and like to see section as well. Any questions? Just briefly, ones off the top of your head. And no worries if you don't. All right, so why don't we do this? Take a look at these questions, or take a look at these measures of success, right? You see the goal at the top, of course. You see the objectives on the left side and the measures of success. Let's start with like. So why don't we do the same thing? We'll reflect just briefly, just for maybe 30 seconds. What are the things that you liked? And then we'll have you just rapid fire share anything that you liked verbally. So why don't we take just a moment to do that? Jot down, what are the things that you liked about this? About the shift in the measures of success and what this looks like for 2021, 2022. What are things that you liked? Reflect on that for just about 30 seconds. All right, great. And let's just do verbal share real quick. What were the things that you liked? Anything that you liked about what you saw in those particular goals and the measures of success? Unmute yourself, rapid fire like we did last time.
I like the shift that it was noted in one of the pre-work documents from just sort of maintaining relationships to developing new ones with some partners related to advocacy and affecting change.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jill. What else? What did you like? Anybody else? You didn't like him? Is that what that means? No, just kidding. I know it's not what it means. Any last thoughts around what you liked? Or anything that may have resonated with you about that particular section? There we go. I switched to my iPad so that would be a little bit easier. Hopefully you guys can read that. All right, great. So reflect just briefly on what would you like to see? And if you have anything that comes to mind in terms of what you liked, then pop that in the chat. What would you like to see? Anything? Any refinement? Any specifics? Anything? Any additional measures of success? What might those be? Go and reflect on that for just a minute. Jot down any ideas you might have. Anything that you'd like to see? And this is for everybody, by the way. This is board staff, no matter who you are. What would you like to see? All right. Any thoughts on what you'd like to see? Any refinements? Any adjustments? Any additions?
This is Luke. You know, this is always a tricky balance on numbers, you know, like goals that are objectively measurable, but then doing the things you want to do. There's always a balance. Some of these I would like to try. It might not be possible, but some of these to think about ways we could create objective measurements as a part of it. Don't know if it's possible, but something to think about, something to explore, I'd say.
Okay. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for sharing. We're putting these in a document, by the way. Anybody else like to see? Anything you'd like to see?
I have one thought related to the Communications Equity Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely affirm the idea of wanting to kind of audit with the information CSI controls and puts out there. I also wonder if we could think about doing some storytelling around our schools that are doing a great job with equity work. So that's almost like combining a little bit of number one and number two, but kind of amplifying schools that are successful in being diverse or have a great story of inclusion, things like that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jill. Any other ideas? Anything you'd like to shift? Thanks, Eric, for that thumbs up. I saw that. Thanks. Anything you'd like to see? Any shifts? Any focuses? Anything else? Going once. Going twice. Wait for it. Wait for it. All right. Goal number 2, Terry. Goal number 2. Was this, by the way, just curious from a experience perspective, is this okay to see, or was it easier when I was sharing my screen? Any particular feedback?
You talking to everyone?
Yeah, anyone. This will be easier for me to scroll through for you, Terry, like this. I just want to make sure you can see it, like you collectively. Can everybody see my screen okay? With Terry over there? You're good? Okay. Sounds like we're good, Terry. Go ahead.
All right. And probably, we haven't changed a whole lot from this year to next year on, our goal 1. So, but if you have any thoughts, that'd be great, particularly around rurals. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that at some point. Goal number 2, which is authorize a diverse, high quality portfolio of schools across Colorado that serve all students. The measures of success, of course, we're always looking at increasing the overall quality of CSI's portfolio. In the midst of COVID, this is challenging, but not impossible, as we've seen through the renewal process that our team has developed this past year and going into this year. So again, the measures of success actually have stayed pretty similar. Increased the number of seats in CSI schools that improved unavailable metrics in the school performance framework. Increase the percentage of points earned by CSI on available metrics in the district performance framework. 3, increase performance of at-risk students and individual student subgroups as informed by available CARS academic performance data. 4, data submissions equity initiative we see in this goal, which is refined data entry, review, validation practices that promote data quality, particularly around the identification of special populations. 5, access and equity around authorizing processes, increase the enrollment of special education students and English learners in schools that did not meet their enrollment targets on the equity screener. We have more conversations that we need to have on that one. Student Services Equity Initiative, implement the revised equity screener and tier supports to support school improvement with a focus on equity. Around authorization equity initiative, review, refine, and align authorizing processes that prioritize innovation, access, and equity. Accountability, evaluation and assessment equity initiative, coming from Ryan's team, continue to develop and expand CSI's capacity to evaluate additional measures of school quality with a focus on model-specific data, climate and culture, and equity for possible inclusion in a revised CSI performance framework. School capacity and school capacity building. 9, increase school board member engagement in CSI training, opportunities, and resources as measured by available website and communication analytics. And that would be both the communication team and Noah's team doing a lot of governance work next year. At least 75% of schools agree or strongly agree that CSI's training and supports has expanded school capacity for schools to improve outcomes and increase equity. And then again, legal and policy initiative, produce 5 new or updated sample policies and or policy guidance documents for schools with a priority on improving equity. Thank you for scrolling down. 12, at least 90% of schools will agree or strongly agree that CSI provides an appropriate level of support as measured by the support questions on the school leader survey. 13, at least 90% of school leaders are satisfied with CSI as their authorizer as measured by the school leader survey. And 14, Luke's favorite, if you didn't know this, Tucker, this should have Luke's name next to it, maintain a net promoter score as measured by the school leader survey. And then lastly, around implementing innovative solutions that address regulatory, legal, and other barriers to creating the educational system we desire. CSI addresses barriers within the educational system for the benefit of CSI schools and students. CSI advocacy results in increased funding equity for CSI schools. You can see that there's a lot with that goal because that's what we do. That's our work as an authorizer. So that's why we have quite a bit.
Fantastic.
I'll be quiet.
That's great. All right, so love to know. Reflect on these. Sorry, this is a little bit bigger. Let me see if I can go this way with it. I don't know if that works. I'm trying to find a good way to. Then it's like super small. Here, I tell you what. We're just gonna give you the link. So reflect on what you liked. What did you like? Things that resonated, things that you appreciated.
I generally like capacity building. I also generally worry of whether CSI is the right entity to do that or whether it should be with the league. But I like the focus on building capacity at the school level.
Great, thanks, Eric.
I like to increase performance of for at-risk students.
Great, thanks.
I also like the it kind of ties in with our last conversation about authorization equity initiative. Potentially some of the ideas we came out of the last session with, how we could incorporate that into this.
Great, thanks, Tom.
I would say an overall like is like there's a focus on bottom line outcomes for students here throughout that is sort of the meat and potatoes of the whole point. So like that.
Great, thanks, Luke. What else? Brenda dittoed Luke's comment in the chat. Nice. Nicely done, Brenda. Anything else? Anything else you liked? All right. If there's anything you liked, pop it in the chat. How about like to see? What would you like to see in these goals as a board, as a staff? What would you like to see?
There's a lot here. I almost wonder if it's too much. I'd like to see us like, is there something to pare down? I don't know, but I like a lot of the things in there. So about what to pare down, I don't have good suggestions. So I'm just totally unhelpful, but something to think about.
Great. You got a +1 from Eric on that too in the chat. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Luke. What else? What would you like to see?
I'd just jump in with another one. Sorry, but
sure. Go ahead.
The previous one. A couple of them. Are there places where we can add objective measurements where there aren't any? Again, realizing that's tough for some of them, but I think that anywhere we can, we should really try to do that.
Great. Thanks, Luke.
I was thinking that too, Luke. A few of them are a little bit just output oriented, like either check a box or don't, and maybe we could make them a little richer than that.
Thanks, Jill. Anything else?
I think. No, never mind.
Okay. Awesome. Well, if you have any other things that you'd like to see, go and pop it up in the chat. Eric +1 Luke's, or Luke +1 Eric's comment there. Thank you, Luke. Nicely done there. That was funny. All right. All right. If we missed anything, again, pop it in the chat. And then Terry, we're going to move on to goal 3.
All right. Thanks, Tucker. This one has quite a few as well. Try to get through them really quickly. More objective measures, though, a little bit easier on this one to get those. So again, focusing more on internal, CSI would be a purpose-driven and innovative and recognized as a premier educational employer in Colorado. Just a bit of a lofty goal, but we're going to get there. So measures of success, we're looking at, well, first to say objectives, we're going to recruit and retain high quality and diverse staff. So this is something that's obviously been high on our top of mind for us and what we've been talking about today. So obviously it's one of the objectives. Measures of success, more than 75% of respondents agree or strongly agree that CSI retains STAR employees as measured by the staff survey. So a lot of this is staff survey driven. Number 2, 75% of the respondents agree or strongly agree that they are satisfied with the overall job as measured by the CSI staff survey. Another one that we typically do. 3, achieve a turnover rate that is 20% or less. That's something we have been measuring year over year. And then an HR equity initiative on review and refine recruitment and retention practices that prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion. Going to 5, fostering a think tank-like atmosphere that encourages creativity, innovation, and flexibility. More than 75% of respondents agree or strongly agree that CSI encourages risk-taking and innovation by developing a culture accepting of mistakes, where employees feel safe to experiment in developing resources to improve student outcomes as measured by the CSI staff survey. Number 6, more than 75% of respondents agree or strongly agree that CSI effectively encourages and supports schools in exercising creativity and pursuing innovation within the confines of applicable rules, laws, and state guidance as measured by the school leader survey. And then moving to being a purpose-driven organization. Number 7, more than 75% of respondents agree or strongly agree that suggestions for improvement are taken seriously as measured by the CSI staff survey. And then 8, we have an HR equity initiative here, review and refine internal practices, prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also have number 9, an LT equity initiative. More than 75% of respondents agree or strongly agree that DEI efforts at the departmental or organizational level have resulted in greater opportunities to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion within the organization as measured by the staff survey. And 10, board equity. So this is where there's been an addition of some board goals and measures of success that is up for discussion, just proposed. Engage in strategic recruitment process to identify a diverse pool of prospective board candidates that align with our mission and values. And then 11, refine board operating procedures, training, and supports. And then thinking about maybe using the board self-assessment as a way to determine if those are being met, those goals are being met. So those are new, 10 and 11 as ideas. And again, I'll stop talking.
That's great, Terry. All right. Really quick reflect. What did you like? What did you like about that? What did you appreciate about what you saw? Things that resonated.
I like the leadership team equity initiative.
Great.
And board equity initiative.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to actually respond to something similar that, it's a clear addition from where we're at, where the board felt like there were some gaps and things previously in terms of a metric question. So yeah, I like that.
Great. Thanks, Luke.
I think the turnover rate is important. That's just strong organizational, metric to look at.
Great. Thanks, Tom. What else did you like? You appreciate?
A lot of clear metrics. I mean, because of the staff survey stuff, there's obviously a lot of clear, objective, measurable stuff here, which is good and bad. That there's limits to those things, but I like that.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Anything else? Anything else that you liked? Appreciated. All right. How about if we missed anything, put it in the chat. You know this. How about things you'd like to see in these particular objectives, these measures? Anything you'd like to see?
So I think we need to kind of tease out the refined board operating procedures, specifically training, and maybe ongoing training. The board gets onboarded, but then I'm not sure if we're doing any ongoing training. So I might call that out.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
And this may even be a follow-up question for the board to explore later, but I'm wondering if points 10 and 11 even belong on Terry's goals, or if those are goals that the board wants to set and own for itself. So just a thought there for me on that one.
Great. Thanks, Jill.
And one other thing, I wonder if we could do a net promoter score measurement for staff. Do you do that? I know.
That's a question for Luke, I think.
Yeah, I know at Rocky Mountain Prep, that's one of our metrics we use around employees and their perception of the organization. That could be an interesting metric.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be an interesting thing to add because the sort of fundamentals of the Net Promoter Score come from this consumer industry, and a lot of it is brand loyalty is one of the major things they're measuring, and I think it could be a useful tool to measure that in terms of employees. It's something I think we could look into more for sure.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Jill. Anything else you'd like to see?
I think Tom mentioned earlier today, I'd love to see some sort of metric around diversity for the staff. It could be diversity. It could be, equity. Certainly we could be measuring our equity and having an understanding of that in terms of compensation, in terms of management, decision-making authority. And that breaks down along racial, gender. I think that would be a useful metric.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Any other things you'd like to see? We are taking all these notes, by the way. So these are in another Google Doc for everybody. Anything else you'd like to see? Going once, going twice. Awesome. So we were going to go into small groups, but I think we'll actually not go into small groups because I think we had enough for everybody to be able to provide their input and whatnot. And we have, I'll make sure and share this. And Jill and Terry, if you have any other recaps you'd like to share, but just so you know, we did start to capture all the different likes and likes to see for each one of the goals. So you can actually go through these. I'll of course give these to, we'll give you all the links and everything so that everybody has access to that. Any final recaps, Terry or Jill, and your final thoughts around that particular section? Otherwise, we'll go into our close.
I just wanted to say, Tucker, real quick, that being new to the board, I was just really impressed with these sets of goals and metrics. And I'm, currently on another board that we're trying to develop this for a brand new ED, and it's we're just not even near this level of, this is just, I'm just in awe of it. So as a new board member, I just wanted to bring that up, that I think this is a really, really great.
Fantastic. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing that. I actually would resonate, being that we work with nonprofits all the time. I would actually concur with what you just said, Brenda, that you have developed a more sophisticated organization and board just from, you know, our own objective or perspective. So yeah, Brenda, appreciate you sharing that. Any other recaps around this particular section, around the goals? Jill, Terry, any last thoughts? Anybody else? All right, great. All right, well, yeah, and Terry, let's just give Terry and the staff, because they did a lot of hard work around this. So unmute yourself, give them a little shout out. You can round of applause, shout out, give them some praise, give them some love. Can't really hear it though. Go ahead, unmute. Woo woo. There we go. Anybody else? Sometimes it's not working as well on Zoom, you know.
Thanks to the whole leadership team and AO for working so hard and getting all the pre-work together and everything else. And then thanks for digesting it all, board. I appreciate it.
Yeah. The final thing, Jill, unless Terry, Jill, if you have any closing comments, and then I want to just end with a final reflection on the day. And it'll be real quick, but just want to hear from everybody. But love to open it up, Jill, for you to have any closing comments that you might have. And we may even get out of here just a little bit early. How nice would that be?
I'll just say that I appreciate everyone kind of rolling with a different format and approach to anything that we've done before. I think we have heard from everyone in a meaningful way on important topics. That was really important to me. And I think for a virtual retreat, we got a lot done. So thank you all for your participation.
Oops, I'm unmuted. Fantastic, Jill, and thank you for all of your hard work and effort and energy that went into this. My final reflection question is just, what was the most meaningful or valuable part of this experience for you? What was the most meaningful or valuable part of this experience for you? Just wanted you to think about that for a moment. Maybe jot down a couple ideas, a couple thoughts. What was the most meaningful or valuable part of this experience for you today? Maybe it was connecting with some of your colleagues. Maybe it was coming up with a bunch of different ideas. This song. No, you can't use this song. That won't count. No, Amanda. It's the most meaningful or valuable part of this experience for you today. Go ahead and jot down any ideas that you have. And then I see people are already starting to put it in the chat. Go and put out some of those ideas in the chat. We want to get a capture a little bit of a log of this. Pop in the chat. What was the most meaningful or valuable part of this board retreat for you today? Thank you, Luke. Just reminded how much I appreciate the staff and board who spend so much time and energy on this. Claire, seeing how much alignment we have across the team. That's great, Claire. Jill, really enjoyed my interview with Janet and also hearing the core values from all of you. Yeah, thank you, Jill. Also, CSU Go Rams. Nice, Luke. I don't think that was in here, by the way, except for your misprint. Hearing from each participant individually. Thanks, Amanda. Discussing the best of CSI, focused on the positive. Thanks, Tom. Yes, Luke from Amanda. Focusing events like this are very helpful in centering our work where we need to be. Thanks, Eric. Time to connect in small groups with board members. I miss these conversations before board committee meetings. Well, you can have these conversations even if they're virtual, just like we did today. Totally agree, Ryan. Thanks, Jill. All right. Anybody want to share anything verbally as well? Otherwise, we'll close. Not that you should be the one in between us and closing, but you know, it's always nice to hear a couple voices just in case. Any last voices to come in the room of what was most meaningful or valuable for you?
No, but I was going to say, are we going to say what the songs were? Because that's kind of a cool piece of little tidbit.
Well, this is Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads.
The soundtrack has been, leadership team did an activity where we all stated what the song is that brings us like to a happy place. So each one of those songs was that for a leadership team member.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I just got a playlist from Amanda. Oh, I didn't know what it was for outside it was the leadership team playlist. I didn't know what that's
that had some significance.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Glad I asked for it. Jill would like to remind everybody that when you evaluate the board chair next year, please remember that we ended the retreat early. Just wanted to throw that out there. Just a reminder. Any last little bits of reflection? Maybe one last word? Anybody? Well, no worries. We can have a dance party now. Thank you all so much for showing up. Thanks for bringing your full self. I know that 4 hours on Zoom can be a long time, but hopefully this didn't feel quite as long as a normal Zoom meeting. And really appreciate you all engaging, because it's actually you being able to engage in the content and the questions and the conversations that actually makes what the experience is. So thank you for setting your intentions in the beginning. We have all the links and docs and all that kind of stuff. Terry, Jill, we'll get those over to you all so that you have all the learnings that came from this. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Unmute yourself and say goodbye if you need to.
Thank you all.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.